Now
Yeah,
I'm
it's
in
got to
YouTube.
connect.
The
It'll tell
stream.
you when it's connected and ready to go.
Okay. Doop 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 boop doop boop. Are we live yet? I guess. Yep, there we are. Nope, we're there.
We're almost there.
No, we're there,
We got to.
baby.
We're there.
Yeah, we're live on the
All
internet.
right.
Look at that. And we already have a super chat. How very exciting.
Wow,
Wow.
that's incredible, man. Our chat rocks.
Yeah.
They sure have been living their life a quarter mile at a time.
Well, they
This
haven't popped up in the actual video yet. Chat hasn't popped up on screen, so maybe they haven't been living their life a quarter mile at a time.
Well,
But
maybe they've just been directing their prayers to the wrong God. I'm in Maryland today, so Jamie's running the stream. You should have been praying to him instead of me, and that's your fault. Like much like the Romans, I'm going to blame everything on you. It's your fault for not understanding my rules. And yeah, thanks for the super chat though. We really appreciate that. Well, I haven't seen the movie yet. Have to watch this once I have. Thank you for the great videos. We really appreciate that, and I think you should. This movie's great.
yes, yes, I
Spoiler
think
alert for how I feel about it.
we could get that out of the way right now. This is a very good movie. It is a classic for a reason. Sunset Boulevard, Billy Wilder's Sunset Boulevard. It turns 75 years old to the day today. How exciting. You should go check it out if you have not seen it already. We are going to spoil it. We're going to do our usual thing. We're going to talk about the movie in depth. So, go check it out. Go give it a watch and then come back. It's okay. We'll we'll still be here when you're done. But if you need to, come back and watch it when the video is not live, that's fine too. It's a very, very good movie. I'm a big fan of it. I think you'd be hard pressed to not like it, at least a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. There's it's got a little something for everyone. An IGN 10. It really hits a lot of different beats. It's fucking hilarious.
It is funny.
It's
Shockingly funny. Oh
yeah.
my god, I just saw chat on screen. Wow. We did it. You did it, guys. I'm
They
so
did
proud
it.
of you.
Boy,
Topaz
I
Dude.
I knew I was right not to doubt you.
Topaz Dude asks, "Hello all. What movies has everyone watched recently? For me, I'm now 15 films into my Akira Kurosawa watch through. Just did Throne of Blood. Wow, that's a lot of. I still haven't
That's a lot
seen
of movies.
a lot of Akira Kurosawa movies, which is a shame. I know. We mentioned it last time. One of the reasons that I have not seen Seven Samurai is just that it's so GD long. It's a very long movie.
It's a very long movie.
But Throne to Blood, you just mentioned, I absolutely adore that movie, and we talked about High and Low a little bit last time. That's another excellent movie. So we gotta do some Akira Kurosawa soon. That's
We
on the
absolutely
list. Of,
so
go ahead.
just yesterday, I watched Sanjuro. I rewatched Sanjuro with my folks, with my parents, and that was a lot of fun. I watched Sunset Boulevard, and I watched The Naked Gun, not the bad one, the one with OJ, um, who
What did
was
you think?
acquitted by a jury of his peers.
Had you seen it before?
No, I had not.
What did you
No, I had
think?
not. It's pretty funny. I mean, there was some stuff where especially towards the end, I was getting a little tired, and I was 3 movies deep on the day,
Mm,
so the jokes stopped falling or hitting quite as hard. Um,
because you just had movie
but
fatigue for the day.
I
Yeah.
yeah, I was just movied out. I was all movied out. There was a lot that happened yesterday. I found a really nice whiskey bar up here as well, which was definitely also uh, coloring some of my perception of what was going on in that movie. I was drunk, is what I'm getting at, and so I started started getting a little loopy by the end. But I thought it was pretty fun.
Yeah.
It was a good time,
I'm a big
real
fan of
good
that
time.
movie. Not the new one. But
Yeah, I
oh,
yeah.
speaking of movies that we've watched recently, you have not seen it yet, but I watched Weapons in the movie theater on Thursday, and I really liked it. It's the best movie of the year so far for me. I highly recommend you go check it
Ooh,
out if you like horror pictures. Um, it's
we
good. It's a lot of fun.
we
We're
are
gonna
planning
talk.
on
Yes, we're gonna
talking
talk
about
about
that. Yeah.
that next week once Hugh has had time to see it. So, you have a week to watch Weapons, the new Zach Kreger film of Whitest Kids You Know fame. There's a lot to talk about. I'm very excited to talk about the
R.I.P.
movie.
Trev. The
R.I.P.
CIA
Trev.
got him.
Yeah. But yeah, go check out Weapons. I think it's good. It's my favorite movie of the year so far. So, um, that's exciting. I mean, I couldn't tell you how refreshing it was to like watch a new
To like go
horror
see a new
movie.
movie in a theater
Yeah, but
and
especially
actually
a new
enjoy it.
horror movie and really enjoy it. That hasn't happened in quite a while for me. So, all the ones everyone, jerks off like Sinners and Long Legs, I'm like, ugh. So,
Terrible.
yeah. So, I was pretty happy with Weapons, and it's funny too. It's like legitimately quite funny. I mean, I laughed harder at that than I laughed at anything in the new Naked Gun movie. So that
Well,
tells you
shit,
anything.
man. I'm glad to see that he like the comedy and horror Uncanny Valley marriage is going strong
Oh
from
yeah,
the whitest kids, you know.
it's so good. A couple things in the chat. Let's see. Where is it? Which Wilder film do you think is the best? For me, it's Ace in the Hole. Very underrated. I know Topaz Dude mentioned that his favorite was The Apartment. There's quite a few of his movies I have yet to see. Billy Wilder, that is. Sunset Boulevard is obviously directed by him. So is Some Like It Hot, which I think is a bit overrated. If I must say, if I'm being honest, I think it's a little overrated. People act like it's one of the greatest comedies of all time, and I'm just like, you know, it's not bad, but it's not. I'm just not as big a fan as a lot of people are. I really like The Apartment. For me, his best movie, and of the ones I've seen, is either Sunset Boulevard or The Apartment. I really like both of those movies. Double Indemnity, it's kind of a mixed bag. We'll talk about that sometime. But because they had to twist and turn to like make the plot work within the Hays Code, it's actually very confusing as to what's happening if you haven't read the book. It's like,
Oh, that's interesting because I've seen Double Indemnity, and I actually I for a little bit I thought that this movie was Double Indemnity.
mm,
I was like, oh yeah. Definitely seen that. And then I was like, oh wait, this is the other one. Got it. Okay. So I have seen that, but I remember being very confused by what actually happened.
yeah,
Um,
it's first of all, it deals with a lot of like insurance stuff that just isn't a thing anymore. So it's confusing in that regard. But because they have to like avoid violating the Hays Code, it actually it's kind of unclear if you're not really paying attention what the hell even happens in the end. So that's kind of a messy movie in my opinion, but a lot of people seem to like it a lot.
that's interesting. So I think these might be the only two Billy Wilder movies that I've seen is Sunset Boulevard and Double Indemnity.
I feel like there was another
Because I
movie of his that I saw recently, but I can't remember what it is anymore. Hmm. Did he do? No, he didn't. Okay, I'm confusing him with someone else. Anyway, yes, Billy Wilder, very talented guy based on these two movies, especially. Yeah, today we're talking about Sunset Boulevard. Like we said before, if you're just joining us, if you have not seen the movie, please leave now and go see the movie because we are going to spoil it, and it is worth watching without having it spoiled, I would say.
Yes, as much as you can watch it without spoiling or having had it spoiled by the sheer fact that it is referenced by almost everything and
Yeah,
is very, very, very in the zeitgeist. The I'm ready for my close-up line is iconic.
there's a lot of iconic
And
stuff from this
yeah,
movie. I mean, even just not even particular lines, but just Norma is like very iconic as like a sort of archetype. You know what I mean? She feels like
yes, yeah, very much
quintessential,
so.
I would say. Personally, I love me a good movie about making movies. I just can't help myself. They're so I love them so. So there's a lot to really love about this movie. So leave now if you haven't seen it, because we're gonna start talking about it right now. Hugh, what did you think of Sunset Boulevard? Tell us a
Loved it.
little bit about your history with this movie.
Yeah, history with that. So my history with this movie is that quite similar to my history with a lot of classic films that I have not revisited for a while. I saw it in a history of film class in my undergrad years, and similar to the problem that I had with Blade Runner, I never managed to get through it because when we watched it, it was in a dark basement. It was the middle of the afternoon. It was very warm, and I would always just end up falling asleep. So when I booted this one up to yesterday, I recognized the opening and I recognized the ending, And I realized like that's pretty indicative of the fact that I took a nap during the middle bits.
Yeah.
Yeah, but upon actually being able to stay awake through it and seeing the whole thing, I quite enjoyed it. I think this is maybe a 9 or a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
I would say it's a classic for a reason. It's very funny. A lot of the subtle jokes, air quotes, I guess, about making movies within the movie
Hmm.
is fun for me, especially as a guy who likes to write and likes the craft of screenwriting. There's a lot of good little jokes about that, and just the old Hollywood glamour and pizzazz is all there. I very much would recommend it. Love this movie.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan as well. I think it's a fascinating movie, not just, for like depicting a certain time period and like a clashing of time periods within Hollywood history, but also just as like a psychological study of this
Yeah,
relationship and how it forms. It's fascinating. And the movie is so, it gets off to a little bit of a slow start, I would say. I mean, not that it's bad in the beginning, but it takes a little bit. But like the movie kind of like lures you in. It's very sort of like, I don't know, intoxicating and mesmerizing, I would say. It just kind of sucks you in slowly. I learned a little while ago that this is one of David Lynch's favorite movies, if not his favorite movie, and that knowledge really,
it makes a
it makes
lot of
so
sense.
much sense. Yes, especially
A
on a
lot of things
rewatch.
fall into place.
I watched it for the first time without knowing that it was one of David Lynch's favorite movies, but and then recognizing a couple names like Gordon Cole. We'll get to that, but after hearing that it was like it's like this and The Wizard of Oz are like his two favorite movies, I'm like both of those make a lot of sense. Yeah, like this feels very much like a David Lynch movie does in the best way. There's just enough surrealism and strangeness, and there's a sort of like really great psychological study of this kind of perverse relationship and the way he kind of gets slowly sucked into like she gets like trapped in her spider's web and all that sort of stuff. It's really, really effective with the use of music and all that. It's an excellent movie. I would say a 9 or a 10 out of 10 as well. Um, One of the things that's also really interesting about this movie to me is the sort of push and pull between like silent film and talkies, right? Like that this movie itself embodies, because this movie has tons of narration in it, right? The experience of watching the movie is a little bit like, because it's a noir. I think we should say that right from the get-go if you have not seen the movie. This is a noir film, but it's not a detective movie. But like in every other
Yeah,
respect, it is very noir with like the sort of like dry, writerly detached narrator, you know what I mean? And all these sort of darker themes and like getting in over your head and all the sort of stuff you expect from a noir movie. It's got everything, right? And the
yeah.
experience of watching it is a lot like the experience of reading like a pulpy detective novel, right? With
Yeah,
the writer, with the detective like commenting on everything, commenting on the action.
a little bit like the experience of being Woody Harrelson's character in True Detective
Yeah,
and listening to Matthew
yeah,
McConaughey just say
yeah.
odd shit, you know?
Exactly. Oh, it's really fascinating because I think one of the things the movie does very successfully is sort of illustrate the power of dialogue and narration to really color and enhance the meaning of a story like this. And it also functions incredibly well if you were to watch it on mute. Like, I think the visual storytelling is excellent, and it's the kind of movie that you can get just about everything you need to understand the story without any dialogue at all. However, the dialogue really helps like flesh it out. Like I'll point out a very specific thing that made me think about this, right? At one point he's getting more and more ensnared in her web, right? And at one point he describes himself as, hold on, I want to see if I can get the exact line because Do do do. I felt caught like the cigarette in that contraption on her finger. She has like a little cigarette holder that like goes
Yeah,
around her
very
finger.
odd cigarette holder.
Very
That's
odd
like a
cigarette holder. And
ring.
he said
Yeah.
he says that he feels the narrator says that he feels caught like the cigarette in that contraption on her finger. Like that's a little great bit of dialogue as we see her hold the the cigarette up to her lips and everything. But like that helps really color and flesh out the story in a way that like you don't need it, but it really helps, right? Because a big part of this story is the sort of debate about the future of Hollywood and whether Hollywood has gotten worse for like moving into like dialogue. Everyone's talking all the time, or whether things were better, as Norma certainly believes, when they didn't
We
have
didn't need
dialogue.
dialogue, we had faces.
Yes, exactly. And I think this movie is kind of, among other things, an exploration of that, and a really interesting one, because the conclusion seems to be that like it's the movies are at their best when the visual storytelling is such that like you could watch it without the dialogue and it would still make sense, but the dialogue and the words help like color things and flesh them out. I don't know. I think it's really effective
Yeah.
in the way it explores all of that.
Well, I think that also the fact that Billy Wilder explores that so deftly kind of does make a case for him being like at the very least top 5 directors of all time.
Oh yeah.
Because that's something that like a lot of directors aspire to, and few are able to execute as well as this.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a very impressive thing to be able to pull off something like that, and to have the dialogue not manage to not feel extraneous as you do it.
Yes.
And he does it very deftly. Somebody earlier mentioned, yeah, as your GM says, movies about making movies, also known as Oscar cheat code. Very, very much recently, yeah. This one managed not to win most of the Oscars it was nominated for, actually, which is kind of impressive, considering how much Hollywood does like to award movies about making movies. That did surprise me to find out that they didn't award it the way that you might think.
Well, it's not a very glamorous portrayal of Hollywood.
No.
You know what I mean? It's Lynchian.
Well,
in that regard.
it is in a way, right? It's like the veneer of glamour, right?
Yes.
Like that's the big thing that they're going for.
Yeah, and the delusions of glamour and of old Hollywood. Really interesting. So, one thing I wanted to talk about. So, let's talk about the basic premise before we start going scene by scene. So, the basic premise of the movie is we have a writer in Hollywood. His name is Joe, and he is struggling to make ends meet. Right? He's in debt. There are people who are coming by to like impound his car. And
yeah, they're repo men. The repo
exactly.
men are after him.
Yes, he hasn't been able to sell a
runaround.
script in a while. He's been writing consistently, but there's a great line where he says he's talking about the stories he's been working on, right? And he says, "So I sat there grinding out original stories, 2 a week. Only I seem to have lost my touch. Maybe they weren't original enough. Maybe they were too original. All I know is they didn't sell." Right? So he doesn't really know what the problem is.
That's great.
He has a couple B pictures to his name, as he points out. But he's struggling to make ends meet. He tries to, call on a few favors to like borrow money from people. He goes to a guy at Paramount that he knows fairly well, and he's like, "Hey man, like why don't you buy this new script I'm working on?" He's like, "Sorry buddy, I'm not interested." So he's fleeing from guys that are coming to repo his car, and his car blows a tire and he pulls into a random driveway on Sunset Boulevard. Oh my gosh, that's the name of the movie. And he finds this old mansion that looks like it's been abandoned, right? It's got this big empty garage, and he's like, the perfect place. I'm going to park my car here. And then he's wandering around the grounds, and he eventually discovers that this is not actually an abandoned house, that there's a mysterious reclusive old woman who lives here. And he eventually finds out that this old woman is former silent film star Norma Desmond, right, who has sort of disappeared from public life and has all these delusions of still being the greatest and most important Hollywood star in the world. And she has this script that she's been writing herself, an adaptation of Salome. I think I'm saying that right.
Salome.
Salome. However you
Salome.
That
The
will
princess.
become important later. That's actually very important to the story. That this is the story she wants to tell, right? So she's working on this movie script, and he's a writer. He's sort of down on his luck, and he sort of offers like, like he reads it for her, and he's like, you know what? I got one note. It's keep writing. Just keep writing. That's my note. Anyway, he is going to help her sort of polish up the script. And so this could be her comeback. She doesn't like the word comeback. She prefers to call it a return, which is a fun detail. But he's going to help her with this script, and this is going to be the big movie. She's going to get Cecil B. DeMille playing himself to make this movie, and it's going to be her big return to stardom, right? And all her fans who've been wondering where she went are going to be so happy that she's back, and this movie's going to be excellent, and she has all these grand plans, and she's going to make 5 movies and all that sort of stuff. And so he is going to help her, and then because he's kind of on the run from, the people that want to take his car and his money and all that sort of stuff, the people he owes money to. So, and then as the story goes on, he gets more and more kind of caught in her web, where she has a sort of obsessive and sort of perverse relationship with him. And then he's sort of torn between like hiding here essentially because he's not doing well in Hollywood, and it's either this or it's go back to Ohio, right? And he's sort of trapped here. And then the obsessive relationship,
Trapped by pride, yes. Trapped by his pride. He doesn't want to go
yes,
back and deal with the jibes from the rest of the people on the type desk at the is it Dayton, Ohio
yes,
Telegraph or something like
yeah.
newspaper that he's working for.
And so as the story gets more, as the story goes on, he gets more and more kind of caught up until eventually something terrible happens. But that's the
Well,
basic
eventually something
premise.
terrible happens, and we find out exactly what terrible thing happens right at the beginning of the movie. Muggy mentions
Yes.
knowing nothing, not even the genre. I thought the story would be that Joe would fix her attitude, they would write the best movie script ever, but then I remembered the intro, which is Joe Gillis floating face down dead in a pool. And this is really so the trailer that came up when I went to turn this on the streaming service started off with a narration is like, a most unusual picture, in the
Mm-hmm.
old 1950s transatlantic accent. And that really rang true, especially right from the beginning when I was like, oh, right, it opens with a guy who has drowned narrating the facts of his own death. Like especially for the 1950s, that's an odd way to start your movie, right? Like that's a very you start with the ending and then work your way back, and the guy who's telling you about it is dead, right?
Yes.
And so there is the question about whether or not maybe there's some twist coming here, and by the end it's very much not that,
Yeah. Well, it's
right?
interesting
Yeah.
because I would say it's like perfectly obvious that that's him, but he doesn't actually say it. You know what I mean? It's like
That's true.
it's the kind of thing where like we're doing that. It's basically the like, yep, that's me. I bet you're wondering how I ended up here. Like that's kind of how it starts. But he doesn't specifically say that that's him. It's just sort of implied, and then he rewinds to tell how we ended up here, right? But the thing is, like, I don't know. Both times I've watched this movie, I kind of forget how it starts every time. And then because you get so like sucked into it, and by the end you're like, oh shit, yeah, he's gonna he's gonna end up dead in the pool. I don't know. I'm sure not everyone would have that experience, but I just have, I forget every time I watch it, and then by the end, like as it starts to get more obvious, like at the very end, I'm like, oh shit, right, yeah, he's gonna die. Spoiler alert. Um, but so there's a lot of great narration and dialogue in this movie. I want to talk about the intro a little bit because it starts. I love the way this movie starts. So it opens like just looking at a sidewalk. You can't really tell it's a sidewalk. It just looks kind of gray, right? And you got the big Paramount logo, and then it tilts down and lands on Sunset Boulevard, written on the curb, right? It's great, and then it
Yeah,
slowly pulls
very
back.
much referenced by Mulholland Drive
Oh
later,
yeah,
right?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And so then the camera pulls back, and then it starts tracking down like it's on the back of a car or something. It starts tracking back down the street, presumably Sunset Boulevard. And all you see is the road kind of passing by underneath you, and the credits play over that, which is really hip.
Very David Lynch. Yeah, very David Lynchy as
Yes,
well. You know,
it
he
is.
very clearly was influenced by this movie.
And like I'm not sure if they hit a cut in here somewhere or not, but it pulls back for like the whole opening credits. You know, you see the cast, you see all that sort of stuff, and then it pulls back, and eventually it tilts up, right? And it tilts up, and then the narration starts, but there are police motorcycles and police cars coming down, and they're coming towards the camera, and then right as one car passes, it does the like flip around really fast, like it pans really quickly to follow the car. It's a really hip camera move, and it all sort of feels like one big long shot. I don't know if they hit a cut in there somewhere or not, I can't remember, but it's a really cool opening. And then the intro starts, and he says, yes, this is Sunset Boulevard, Los Angeles, California. It's about 5 in the morning. That's the homicide squad, complete with detectives and newspapermen. A murder has been reported from one of those great big houses in the 10,000 block. You'll read about it in the late editions, I'm sure. You'll get it over your radio and see it on television because an old-time star is involved, one of the biggest. But before you hear it all distorted and blown out of proportion, before those Hollywood columnists get their hands on it, perhaps maybe you'd like to hear the facts, the whole truth. If so, you've come to the right party. And then they show a body floating in a pool, and you have, photographers and policemen standing next to the pool. They're like, trying to figure out how to get the body out. They're taking pictures and all that sort of stuff. And then we cut to one of the coolest shots in the movie, absolutely iconic, of his body floating in the pool, and you see the guys behind him outside of the pool. It's, oh my God.
It's so good,
cool shot.
Man.
There's a lot of great cinematography in this movie,
shot.
but there's a few shots like that really, really stand out. And then he says, if so, you've come to the right party. You see, the body of a young man was found floating in the pool of her mansion with 2 shots in his back and 1 in his stomach. Nobody important, really, just a movie writer with a couple of B pictures to his credit. The poor dope, he always wanted a pool. Well, in the end, he got himself a pool, only the price turned out to be a little high. Let's go back about 6 months and find the day when it all started, right? And then he says, I was living in an apartment house above Franklin, right? So heavily implied that that's him, especially when we find out in like 2 minutes time that he's a writer with a couple of B pictures to his name, right? But he doesn't say it. It's not actually explicit. It's not actually quite as cringe as like, yep, that's me. I bet
you're wondering how I got myself into this situation. Let me tell you how I died. Yeah.
It's very much implied if you're paying attention, right?
I mean, it's a little hard not to notice if you have a brain, basically. But it is something that it is not directly.
There's enough plausible deniability that you think like, well, maybe that's not what happens, right? But then you, as the movie goes on, you either forget about this scene or the whole time you go like, oh, okay, he's gonna die, But it's an interesting choice, right? Because I think there are a lot of movies that have successfully pulled this off, where what happens is actually told to you right at the beginning, and then the interesting thing is how, right? Like, The Social Network is one that comes up for me a lot. Like, you learn right at the very beginning, because of the way the story is told very non-linearly, that like, oh, he's being sued by his best friend, he's being sued by the Winklevoss twins who said that they stole his idea, right? So there's no twist in the movie. What's interesting is like how it all happens and how we got here, right? And this is a little bit like that, where it's like he's going to end up dead. And so this is all an interesting story about how he gets there. And I think the movie is actually really successful. I think a lot of stories would not work like that. If you so much of the drama relies on not knowing how it's going to end, but this one still really, really works even though you know. Which I think is really impressive, because it's more about the how. It's more about like how weird this relationship is, exactly,
Yeah, and exactly how he ended, it's more about the journey than the destination. The real movie is the friends we made along the way kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right? There are a couple of comments in the chat that I was unaware of. They apparently there was a deleted scene where corpses in a morgue discuss how they died as the frame for the narration, which is a very unusual choice for back then.
It is. There's still many unusual choices, but that one did not make it into the final picture.
Yeah.
It's interesting though.
That would have been It would have been something.
So, before we continue with the story, I do want to talk briefly about just how fucking brilliant the casting in this movie is. So, um, this movie stars William Holden as Joe Gillis, which, as I think Topaz Dude mentioned in the chat, is a great noir name. Joe Gillis is like the perfect quintessential noir name. But Norma Desmond is played by Gloria Swanson, who was herself a silent film star, right? And then eventually we'll learn that her butler, who also in the story, used to be a movie director, Eric von Stroheim, plays Vax von Meyerling, who in real life, Eric von Stroheim was also a silent film director who actually directed a movie with Gloria Swanson. And the movie they watch later on in the movie, they watch one of Norma Desmond's previous silent films. That's one directed by Eric von Stroheim. So like, isn't that incredible?
Funny.
Yeah,
that is why. Yeah,
and then other points in the movie, the waxworks, as Joe Gillis is fond of calling them, her old silent film friends, show up to play cards with her and all that sort of stuff, and they are also old silent film stars playing themselves. We have Buster Keaton, he's there, H.B. Warner, Hedda Hopper, all silent film stars, right? All playing themselves. And then Cecil B. DeMille is the director, the Gloria Swanson's character Norma wants to make her movie, and Cecil B. DeMille is just playing himself, right? Like, it's just amazing to me that all the casting choices are just perfect like that. Everyone's playing kind of an exaggerated version of who they are in real life, and all these people are like really good in the movie. Like Buster Keaton doesn't have a lot to do; he just kind of shows up, right?
He kind of shows up and looks melancholy.
Yeah.
And he does a great job with it.
Yes,
he was a silent actor after all.
He does have a good like job resting sad face, I would say. But Cecil B. DeMille plays himself wonderfully. He's very good. He's actually like a really interesting character when we get to him. Like he's like really sympathetic towards Norma in a really interesting way. We'll talk about it. But I just think that's incredible, right? That they got to use not only one of Gloria Swanson's real silent film movies, right? That people would have that relationship to her. The Gloria Swanson was someone, I think Nancy Olson, who plays Betty Schaefer, said in an interview one time that like she didn't know who Gloria Swanson was, but her mom did, and her mom like corrected her, like no, Gloria Swanson was huge, she was an incredible silent film star and all that sort of stuff. And so like she was the type perfectly, except for the sort of like perverse delusions of grandeur and all that sort of fun stuff. But like they get to show one of her silent movies, and it's actually her. And not only is it actually her, it's a movie directed by the butler. Like that's just incredible. Like I don't know how you luck out like
the way
that.
they weave that in
so
together.
Good.
That's really it's very, very ambitious, right? To do all of this, and especially in the 1950s, this kind of thing has become a lot more usual. Right, like people playing themselves in movies. We have a lot of, comedy. Like This Is the End does that.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of.
I like that movie.
Yeah, I like that movie too. But like a lot of movies do this kind of thing, especially now, right? But I have a feeling that this is a very heavy influence on the process of doing that, right?
Yeah.
Like this is something that like it was considered very unusual at the time. I'm not 100% sure about that, but it feels like so.
Yeah, and as Topaz Dude points out, that Gloria Swanson hadn't been in a movie for 10 years prior to Sunset. So like she was that silent film star that had disappeared from the limelight and was making her return, which is perfect for the movie. Absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
So perfect, in fact, that I found an interview of Gloria Swanson in the 1970s having to sort of explain to people that she is not that character. She's not a recluse. She doesn't have this weird like butler that used to be her husband. And she seemed a little annoyed by it. And I felt a little bad for her because I think the farther you go back in time, the more people still struggle, to be clear, but more people struggle to separate the character you play on screen from how they perceive you must be in real life. and she seemed a little annoyed to have to keep telling people that she's not this character just because they share some superficial similarities in their story. And I was like, oh, that kind of sucks a little bit. It's like I thought about it. Reminds me a little bit of the problem that the Blair Witch runs into, the Blair Witch Project, because the movie felt so real for people, and so much of the marketing depended on it, playing with the fact that, oh, this is a real story. It's a real film, real found footage film. And these aren't real actors, but they were real actors. But they never really had careers after that because everyone just sort of assumed that the movie was real. So they never really thought about the actors. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like they weren't really able to separate themselves from it. It's just an interesting thing, an interesting phenomenon. Anyway, so back to the movie. Yes, he narrates his little opening. We established that he is a writer and he's struggling a little bit. So he says, I was living in an apartment house above Franklin and Ivar. Things were tough at the moment. I hadn't worked in a studio for a long time, so I sat there grinding out original stories, 2 a week. Only I seem to have lost my touch. Right? And then he gets a knock at the door, and it's two repo men coming to impound his car, and he's like, oh, well, it's not here. I don't know what you're talking about. And they're like,
yeah, I lent it to a buddy. He's down in Colorado Springs or Palm Springs, whichever springs on the West Coast.
Yeah. And they're like, all right, we're not stupid. We know you still have the car. Like, you have this, you have until whatever to get it to us. And he's like, I knew they were coming. So I hid my car down at this, garage, Rudy's garage, I think he's called, where like nobody asks questions. And so he's like, well, I need the money and I need it quick. So I'm going to call in a favor from one of the guys at Paramount who actually liked me. And so he goes in and he's like, hey, I got this script, and he's pitching it to him. And the way he pitches it is so funny to me. Let's see. Sheldrake, that's his name. Now, I couldn't remember. Sheldrake sounds really familiar. Is there a Sheldrake in any of Lynch's work? It sounds really familiar to me.
It sounds familiar, but it's not one that's like ringing any bells. Later on, Gordon Cole, as soon as he says that, I'm like, yeah, no, okay, all right. I get that. And then, of course, we have Betty Schaefer in this movie, and Betty is a main character in Mulholland Drive.
Yes.
Very similar, right? A naive, sort of young, bright starlet. Well, maybe not starlet. Like somebody getting their start in the film industry who's yet to be disillusioned by the realities of
Hollywood.
Yes. Hollywood. We've got all of that. Which, yeah. How could someone write 2 stories a week? Must be some bad stories. Well,
Well, he describes them not as full screenplays, but as like treatments and outlines for stories, right? So,
and one of the ones presumably is this one that he's pitching about a baseball player who he gives a very specific average.
He says
ERA.
He says there's a 40-page outline, right? So like, he's cranking out outlines for stories and stuff like that. You want to be paid to actually write the script in old Hollywood, right? Even in modern Hollywood. So I like the way he pitches it, so it's funny. I'm going to read it. Let's see. Where is it? He's like, all right, Gillis, you got 5 minutes. What's your story about? And he says, it's about a baseball player, a rookie shortstop that's batting .347. Poor kid was once mixed up in a holdup, but he's trying to go straight, except there are a bunch of gamblers that won't let him. It's like, so they tell the poor kid he's got to throw the World Series or else, huh? He's like, more or less, except for the end. I got a gimmick that's real good. It's like, you got a title? Bases loaded. There's a 40-page outline. And the guy he's talking to says, call reader's department, find out what they have on Bases Loaded, right? And then he's like, they're pretty hot about it over at 20th, except I think Zanuck's all wet. And then he's pitching it to him. He's like, can you see Ty Power as a shortstop? I got the best man for it right here on this list, and all that sort of stuff. They're pitching the movie. Yeah. But eventually,
and he's trying to upsell, right? Like, he doesn't have a guy at 20th who's interested in
he's lying,
the screenplay.
Sure.
He's bluffing, right?
Yeah, he's trying to make it seem like the other studios are really interested, so we better jump on it, And then one of the readers comes up, and it's Betty Schaefer, and she does not realize that the writer is in the room because of the way she walks in the door. So she goes up to Sheldrake, and he's like, what do you think of Bases Loaded? And he's like, I think it kind of sucks. I didn't think it was very good.
Yeah, it's pretty shit. It's shit. What do you think of Bases Loaded? Shit. And what do you think of shit? Bases Loaded.
So she comes in,
Yeah.
and then she kind of realizes that the writer is in the room, and she's like, "Oh, I just want to crawl in a hole and pull it in with me," or something like that. It's pretty funny. Yeah, so he's trying to sell this script, and the guy's not really interested. And he's like, "You know what? There's a really funny moment where what does he say? The Sheldrake is like, "Now wait a minute. What if we made it a girls' softball team? Put in a few numbers, might make a cute musical. It happened in the bullpen. Story of a woman." Just so good.
Foreshadowing modern Hollywood.
Yes, it's so good. I
Put a
love
chick in it, make her gay.
exactly. He's like, "Are you trying to be funny? Because I'm all out of laughs." He doesn't. Gillis does
I'm
not
all out.
like this
Yeah.
version, right?
There's so many good lines like that somebody mentioned in the chat. I called a couple of yes men. To me, they said no. It's just
Yes,
just like so many great
very
lines.
writerly.
Noir, like
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, and
His
like,
baseball story does sound good. Yeah, I mean, it does sound kind of interesting. It's just like one of the things, like it's the readers department. They all know the plots, right? They'll bring that up
yes,
later. Is like he's not being particularly authentic with what he's writing, and it's showing in the work, right? Like it's all plot and story, never anything like true. There's nothing true within it. He's just kind of doing. He's fallen into the trap of doing it with pretty much rotely, without passion, right? That's the
yes.
whole.
Well, he's trying to make money. He's trying to do what he thinks will sell. He's not writing something he's actually super passionate about. He's cranking out what he thinks studios want, and he's kind of like surprised that they don't want it. So Schaefer, Betty Schaefer comes in. Well, it's kind of funny that Sheldrake says, "This is Miss Kramer," and she's like, "Actually, it's Schaefer, Betty Schaefer." And so he's like, "I'm sorry, Mr. Gillis, but I just didn't think it was any good." She says, "I found it flat and trite." And he's like, "Well, what exactly kind of material do you recommend? James Joyce, Dostoevsky?" And she says, "I just think that pictures should say a little something." And I love his response here. He's like, "One of the message kids. Just a story won't do. You'd have turned down Gone with the Wind." And Sheldrake
I
says,
did.
no, Sheldrake says, "No, that was me. I said, who wants to see a Civil War picture?" And you see the look on his face of regret that he turned down Gone with the Wind because it's the most successful movie of all time still. And he says, "Perhaps
Yep.
the reason I hated Bases Loaded is that I knew your name. I'd always heard that you had some talent." He says, "That was last year."
Ooh, that's a good. That's a great line too.
Yeah. And he says, "That was last year. This year I'm trying to earn a living." It's like, so you take plot 27A, make it glossy, make it slick. And he's like, "Oh, those are dirty words. You sound like a bunch of New York critics." Like, that'll be all, Miss Kramer. And so, to your point about, like, they know all the plots, it's like she knows that he used to write good things that were, like, actually really captivating and original and had passion behind them. But now, he's just sort of doing what he thinks will sell, and it's not working. It's not resonating with any of the studio execs. And I love the non-creative studio execs. Like, I don't know. What about, what if we put a woman in it? What if we put a chick in it and made it gay? Put some songs in it. I love his title. It happened in the bullpen, story of a woman. It's so good. Anyway, so it doesn't go well here for Joe Gillis. And he sort of retreats. He goes down to Schwab's pharmacy. He tries to call some people. It was already mentioned. He called a couple yes men. To me, they said no. A lot of great lines like that throughout the movie. And then he finds his agent, which he's had a trouble tracking down, right? And it's sort of implied that that's like, typical agents, right? Not actually doing very much to help you. It's like, is he out chasing leads trying to get me a gig? No, he's out shooting the links, right?
Yeah, shooting the links.
Oh, it's even better. He
Uh,
says, no, he was
classic.
hard at work in Bel Air making with the golf sticks. He says, so you need
God, I
$300.
love
Of
it.
course, I could give you $300, only I'm not going to.
Best thing that'll ever happen to you. Lose a couple of.
Basically,
Get your legs cut off.
he basically implies that, if he loses he says Joe Gillis says losing his car will be like losing his legs. He's like, that's the best thing that'll ever happen to you. Basically his agent's like, you need to be hungry, you need to really want it. And so he's just gonna like let him like his life fall apart essentially, because he's like, then you'll be hungry, then you'll be a better writer. And Joe Gillis is not a fan of that. He's like,
It must not be Russian.
he said, maybe if I hocked all my junk, there'd be enough for a bus ticket back to Ohio, back to that $35 a week job behind the copy desk at the Dayton Evening Post, if it was still open. Back to the smirking delight of the whole office. All right, you wise guys, why don't you go out and take a crack at Hollywood? Maybe you think you could make it. So that's
The petulance too is like,
yeah.
God, man, the
Oh,
dialogue
the dialogue's
is
really
so
good.
fun.
It is
It's
really
so
good.
fun.
Yeah, it's really fun. Like I said, it has this sort of like feeling of reading this as a book. You know what I mean? Like I was kind of surprised it wasn't a book or a play. You know, when I watched the movie first
Yeah.
time, it just feels like that, right?
The kind
Before,
of thing that we used to get when screenwriters used to read a lot of noir novels, just like
yes,
pick them up and burn through them.
yeah.
Raymond Carver stuff.
So really quick, because
Raymond Chandler.
yes,
That's what I'm thinking of.
there's a great little moment here, right? He's talking to his agent, and his agent's like, "That's the greatest thing that could happen to you. Now you have to sit behind. Now you'll have to sit behind the typewriter. Now you'll have to write." He's like, "What do you think I've been doing?" He's like, "I've been writing, motherfucker. I haven't just been lazing about." He's like, "I need the $300," and then his agent goes, "Sweetheart, maybe what you need is another agent." It's like, oh, calling another grown man sweetheart like that. It's just like Jesus Christ. That's pretty fucking condescending. I love it. It's so good. Anyway, so he's driving and he's narrating and he's thinking about like, well, maybe it's time to give up the Hollywood dream and go back to Dayton, Ohio. There's a little bit of like, Jack Torrance in this moment, not nearly as resentful, but he's like, oh, you want me to go back to shoveling driveways? Would that make you happy? You know, I
Yeah.
could really write my ticket now. Anyway, so he's like talking about going back to Ohio, seeing if maybe he, can't get that job at the newspaper that he used to have. And then as he's driving, he runs into some guys that are trying to get his car. And so a high speed pursuit takes place. He blows a tire, but he manages to evade them and land in the driveway of a mysterious old mansion out on Sunset Boulevard, right, in the 10,000 block, which I imagine is pretty far away from downtown. And he's like, the way he describes it is so writerly. I love it. He says, I had landed myself in the driveway of some big mansion that looked run down and deserted. At the end of the drive was a lovely sight indeed, a great big empty garage just standing there, going to waste, if ever there was a place to stash away a limping car with a hot license number. It's so good.
That's a great noir kind of like,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
that's a good one.
Because I was watching, there was a sort of like behind the scenes or like a featurette, little short documentary sort of thing, on the Blu-ray special features for Sunset Boulevard. And there's this one guy, he was a younger guy. It wasn't like they had a lot of interviews with the people who worked on the movie that were still alive, but they also had a couple like younger writers whenever they recorded this, like maybe in 1990 or 2000 or something like that. And there's this young writer who was talking, and he's like, "See, the problem with Sunset Boulevard and why why it was so revolutionary at the time is that it didn't have a genre." And I'm like, "You're stupid. This is a noir movie. This is not some weird like genre bending. I mean, there's like it's maybe funnier but a lot of noir movies are kind of funny in that dry sense. Like this is just a noir movie. It's just not a detective story. Like this is not really that complicated. Like everything about it just screams noir. This down on his luck writer slash detective who gets ensnared in this mystery, and he like ends up in over his head, and he's always like making like wry sardonic comments about what's happening around him. It's there's a sort of there's a weird sort of like the underbelly of glamorous Hollywood story happening. It's pretty straightforward. Anyway, he sees a car in the driveway. This is like 1932, this old, an enormous foreign-built automobile, he says. It must have burned up to 10 gallons to a mile, right? And so he decides that, like, well, this place is probably empty. At least it's a good place to hang my car for now, right? And so he's like, probably can't go back to my apartment because the bloodhounds are onto me. So he's not really sure what he's going to do. And he's sort of wandering around this property. I love the way he describes it. He says it was a great big white elephant of a place.
Yeah, like when then he describes it as Mrs. Haversham in Great Expectations,
Mm-hmm.
the woman who is famously wearing a rotting wedding dress because she was left on her wedding day. Like it basically has grown old, like sitting around, doing a nice bit of foreshadowing for what is going to like unfold for the plot later, right? Giving us that reference, which is nice to go back to a time when movies used to make references like this, to stuff that was like popular back in the day.
Meaningful references too.
Meaningful references, yeah, that drive home sort of like the plot. or like the character psychology of what we're going to see moving forward, right?
Yes.
Something that's very enjoyable.
And it's at this point Joe Gillis sees a mysterious old woman, like on the balcony, kind of far away, and she says, "You there? Why are you so late? Why have you kept me waiting so long?" He's like, "In here," and he's like, I just put my car in the garage. I had a blowout. I thought maybe." And then Max, the butler's like, "Go on in." He's like, "Just go in, right?" And he's like, "Look, maybe better take my car." And he's like, "Wipe your feet. Go on." And then he's like really confused about what this all is. He's like walking through the house and he doesn't know why they're expecting him. Something is very odd about all this. As he's walking up the stairs, Max, the butler, says, "If you need any help with the coffin, call me." It's like, oh, that's weird. That's a little freaky. He walks up and he sees Norma Desmond, and she's this mysterious old recluse, right? And she says, "I put him on my massage table in front of the fire. He always liked fires and poking at them with a stick." Which is really funny when it's revealed in like 30 seconds that she has a dead chimpanzee in her, bedroom. Is it her bedroom? It's one of the upstairs
Yeah,
rooms.
one of the many upstairs rooms in this massive mansion,
And so she
And,
like
like,
lifts
again,
the,
like
the like veil that she's put over this dead chimpanzee that she's treated like it's like a dead child, essentially. And she says, "I've made up my mind. We'll bury him in the garden." Any city laws against that? And he's like, I wouldn't know. I don't care anyway." She says, "I want the coffin to be white, and I want it specially lined with satin. White or deep pink, maybe red. Bright flaming red. Let's make it gay." It's like, first of all, we're going to talk about this a lot because every line delivery she has is fucking incredible. She is so unbelievably good in this movie, and her like over the top theatrical, like delusional, sort of narcissistic, dramatic persona that she has. She's so fucking funny, right? Funny and weird and dark and kind of fucked up. But it's so fun to watch her overact in all these
hypnotic.
scenes.
Yeah, I was gonna say like a hypnotic form of overacting, right? Like her eyes are always like it's like she thinks she's always on a stage.
Yes.
Exactly. Which is
Let's make it gay.
like absolutely perfect. Let's make it gay. Yeah, perfect for this character, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like absolutely perfect. At least she still has her face. Yeah, with a chimp pet, that would have that could have really taken a turn. And this is also one of the moments where I started to realize exactly how much The Big Lebowski is inspired by stuff like this as well.
Yeah.
Where I was like, yeah, this is like a kind of like hapless, guy and Raymond Chandler has a bit to do with that as well.
Because the big sleep is the thing that The Big Lebowski takes the most from. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this
same.
too, for sure.
Yeah, that's this too. Yeah, there's the comedy and the strange, the touching of a strange world, by a sort of hapless protagonist who's not sure what he's getting into at the beginning, right? Like there's a little bit of that there as well.
Yeah.
Put a chimp in it, make it gay. That's that's great. That's like exactly what she's doing. That's perfect.
Yeah, that is.
Man,
really
so
fun.
he starts to explain that he's not the coffin guy. Yeah,
really quick,
yeah, you got the wrong dude.
Before we get to that, someone in the chat said Italian car that cost $50,000 in 1932. Yeah, so I just looked it up. That car that he the Italian car he finds in the driveway that is described as being later in the movie as costing $50,000. That would be $1.1 million today. Just in case you were wondering. Yep.
And there's a G-Wagon in my parents' neighborhood that somebody just listed for sale at like $1.5 million. Actually,
crazy. Speaking
it's
really
like it's
quickly.
very clearly intended for Saudis. Like basically is it's like there's it's one of those like off-roading thing. Like you can basically just drive up a sand dune in this thing and it'll be completely fine. Every seat has its own TV. So that everybody can just sit and watch whatever they want. The thing is, it's basically a plane on wheels. And Yeah, so this is basically what she has just sitting in the garage.
Yeah,
Probably gets like 10 miles to the gallon.
and because this is a well-written script that will become important later, it's not just an extraneous detail, right?
Yeah.
Because I already have this inflation calculator page up, uh, this movie cost roughly $1.7 million in 1950s money, which is $23 million today. Just in case you were curious what the budget of this film was. Anyway, so yeah, he like he said, he describes that. Sorry, I'm actually not the coffin guy. I just my car broke down, and she's like, well, get out of here. He says, I thought this was an empty house, and she's like, it is not. Get out. He says, I'm sorry, and I'm sorry you lost your friend. And by the way, I don't think red is the right color. You can't for the coffin.
Yep.
And she's like, wait a minute, haven't I seen you before? I know your face. And she's like, get out, or shall I call my servant? He's like, wait, you're Norma Desmond. You used to be in silent pictures. You used to be big. And then another one of the most iconic lines in the movie, she says, I am big. It's the pictures that got small. Which,
that dude, I cracked up at that one. That is so good.
yes.
What a great line.
It's an incredible line.
Big. It's the pictures that got small. Real quick before we continue, also, the chat wants to know, everybody wants to know, Jamie, what did it make at the box office, and what does that adjust for?
Oh, well, okay. Do you have it pulled up? I can pull it up.
I have the box office number.
Okay, you tell me the box office number. I'll do the inflation calculating.
5 million in 1950.
5 million in 1950. That would be $66 million today. So that's a good profit.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good profit.
Pretty good. For costing
pretty reasonable.
Yeah, that's you're into the black, so that's good.
Yeah, and you probably didn't have to spend as much on marketing back at that time.
No, you certainly did not, because there were not nearly as many things competing for your attention. This is 1950, so even television wasn't really quite at the level where everyone had one yet. So, movies still had this sort of dominance over all pop culture. It's funny, you can tell when that switch happens because it's the switch from the Academy ratio to widescreen. Anyway.
Yeah.
So let's see, where were we? Okay, so
she was
you're
was
Norma
telling
Desmond.
them to get out.
You used to be big. I am big. It's the pictures that got small. And she's always gesticulating in really amusing ways with her hands. He said his sort of sarcastic, dry response is, I knew there was something wrong with them. She says, they're dead. They're finished. There was a time in this business when they had the eyes of the whole wide world, but that wasn't good enough for them. Oh no, they had to have the ears of the world too. So they opened their big mouths and out came talk, talk, talk. And he says that's where the popcorn business comes in. You buy yourself a bag and plug up your ears. And she keeps ranting. She says, look at them in their front offices, the masterminds. They took the idols and smashed them. The Fairbankses, the Gilberts, the Valentinos. And who have we got now? Some nobodies. And he says, don't blame me. I'm just an executive, not a writer. She's like, you are writing words, more words. Well, you've made a rope of words and strangled this business. But there's a microphone right there to catch.
Every line of dialogue is just so fucking good.
I know.
This is another one of those streams where we're basically just going to be reading through the script.
Because it's so good. It's so good. Listen to this. Well, you've made a rope of... you are writing words, and more words. Well, you've made a rope of words and strangled this business. But there's a microphone right there to catch the last gurgles and Technicolor to photograph the red swollen tongue. God damn, dude. That's so fun. That's so... poetic.
And the way she delivers this
yes
is it could easily be too much, right? But she's just going for it. It's incredible. Oh, yeah. Her performance is amazing.
Well, it is too much. You know what I mean? But it's supposed to be too much. She's actually an insane person, and she's been living by herself, and she still thinks that she's the greatest Hollywood star in the world, and she thinks that the only reason she's not currently at the top of the world is that talkies were invented. And so of course she would have that sort of vitriol towards them.
She's got nothing to do all day every day besides sit around with her dead chimp friend and her ex-husband butler and just stew about it. It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
People were asking too also how much you think a ticket for the movies cost back in 1950,
Oh God.
just to put it in perspective.
I don't know. What? Tell me.
Roughly 50 cents.
Hmm.
Yeah, so 50 cents in 1950 to today would be about $6. So considerably less expensive
Mm-hmm.
than it is now. I bet you popcorn was like a penny or something like that when you got in the door. What a world. But yeah, it's the way that she's like performs every line. Like again, it's like she's always on a stage. She's
Yes.
always in front of a camera.
Yep.
She's just constantly performing, and it's just extremes, and it's great. She swings very much from the height of vitriol to the absolute lowest lows of suicidal depression to like yeah
Oh yeah.
or the highs of romance, and she just doesn't she has no middle ground.
No, she certainly does not. So she's screaming about, a microphone to catch the last gurgles and the Technicolor to photograph the red swollen tongue. And he says, "Shh, you'll wake up the monkey." She's like, get out of here. He says, and he's being kind of mean to her, because he's very snarky and he can't help himself. And he's like, next time I'll bring my autograph album along, or maybe a hunk of cement and ask for your footprint. And she's getting really mad at him. And then she's like, wait a minute, you're a writer, he said. And he's like, well, are you or aren't you? And he's like, that's what it says on my guild card. And he's like, so you've written pictures, huh? And he's like, well, perhaps you can help me because I'm writing a screenplay. You know what I mean? So then that's when she introduces that she, in fact, is working on a movie. She's been writing it herself, an adaptation of Salome, or Salome, however the hell you say it. And this is going to be her big, return. She doesn't like the word comeback.
Yes.
She calls it a return. And so this is when she introduces that, like, hey, maybe you can take a look at it. You're a writer. And he's like, well, you don't want to share you don't want to share your work with a writer. They could steal it. And she's like, I'm not worried about that.
I'm not afraid.
Yes,
Because she believes only she can play this role, right?
Yes,
and so
exactly.
The story of Salome, however you want to say it. I think she says Salome. Is basically it's a biblical story about a king's daughter who dances for Herod, and he's so enchanted by her dance that he offers to give her anything that she wants, and she and her mother ask for the head of John the Baptist. So she basically gets him executed, right? Um, and yeah, so she wants to play essentially a charming, young, beautiful girl with a sort of a serpent's heart kind of
Yes.
hinge to it, right? That's how she views herself. Her magnum opus is going to be playing this character. She's been working on it for years. It's like 600 pages long. It's a
Yes.
huge script, and she
He
doesn't want
describes
to
it
cut
as
any of
looking
it.
like it's enough for 6 important pictures. Yeah.
Yes, 6 important pictures, and this is going to be her big return. She's basically like she has no idea where what her star power, like how much it's waned or where it might lie, right? This character doesn't have that grasp on anything. She still wants to live like she's the young starlet on top of the world with all the
Mm-hmm.
money that she could possibly, want to do anything, right? Um, and he's kind of in this scene, he's like kind of charmed by that a little bit. He's like, that's interesting. Like you have all this money and you'll pay me to do this, and all I have to do is kind of like just sit around and write it, right? Like
And edit
all
it,
I need
essentially, yeah.
and edit it. Yeah.
And because she's so wealthy, he can ask kind of an exorbitant price. He even says, like, hey, I'm pretty expensive. And she's like, it's fine. Money is no object to me. So it's a great deal for him at first. Of course, it is too good to be true. One thing I wanted to
Yes.
point out really quick about the choice of it being Salome or Salome, I think she says it. I think she's saying it wrong, but I actually don't know how it's supposed to be pronounced. Anyway, um, the way she tells the story, I think, is really indicative of why it's so important for the movie, right? So she's like, Salome, what a woman, what a part. The princess in love with a holy man. She dances the dance of the seven veils. He rejects her, so she demands his head on a golden tray. He rejects her, so she kills him.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Something to think
Very. Yeah.
about.
Wow. It's wild how writers used to be able to do things like that.
Yeah.
Use time-honored biblical stories that have some kind of very powerful resonance and mythological pull to inform the thing that they're working on. Isn't that wild?
Mm-hmm.
Crazy thought. Nah, don't do that though. Just put a chick in it, make her gay and lame.
So, he sits down to read the script. Hold on a second. Sorry, I took an ill-timed bite of a sandwich. All right, I'm back. So, he sits down to read the script, and he's like, "Yeah, this is garbage. This is very indulgent. This is why you don't let the actors write the movies. I think this is
Yes,
a
but
good."
like I love the part where he like cuts the scene, right? And she's just like, "What is that?" Like she watches him throw a bunch of pages into the trash can, and she gets up and is just like, "What is that? What did you just put in there?" And he's like, "Oh, it's just a scene
Oh
that I cut,
shit!
you know."
Sorry, I realize now that they can hear me chewing because we're streaming from my end and Discord is not cutting it. Ha ha ha! My bad. I'm not gonna do that anymore. Sorry about that. Whoops. See, usually I can do that because we're streaming from Hugh's end and my audio is coming from Discord. So whoops. Anyway. So-
What kind of sandwich though?
it was a fried bologna sandwich.
Ooh, I'd eat that.
Yeah.
Everybody'd eat that.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
My bad.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to do that to your ears, fellow human beings with ears. Won't make that mistake again. Anyway, so he's reading her script, and it's not very good at all, right? But they're bringing in champagne for him to drink and caviar, so he's like, this isn't a bad deal. I can hide here. I can do this gig. She can give me lots of money. What could go wrong? Hard cut to him being shot in the back and falling into the pool. But in general, what were you gonna say?
I was saying I love that scene where he cuts the scene from her script, right, from the script, and he's like, it wasn't such a bad gig except that she was here all the time, like she's sitting there
Looking
watching
over
him
his shoulder.
like looking over and making sure he doesn't cut anything that she finds important. And so what he does is he's like, oh, I'm throwing out this one scene, it's a little extraneous and it's better to just to cut straight to John the Baptist because we got to treat that character as if he's a character, right? She's like, no, don't cut that. It's like, don't cut that. That's one of my important scenes. And he says, well, they don't want you in every scene. And her response is just like, yes, they do. They want me in every scene. The people demand it. I get 17,000 fan letters a day. I once got 17,000 fan letters in a day. The people demand me in every scene.
Yep.
Which is I love that through line for her character that she's like convinced that this is going to come up later, going to be very important when we discover who's sending those fan letters, right? But she's being convinced by everyone around her that her importance is still like much bigger, much larger than it actually is,
Yes.
because she has this sort of hypnotic influence on people, right?
Yeah.
So like you can which is a really great choice for the character because you can kind of tell that she does have this like star power, right? She has this pull that draws people in around her, and just like there's just something about her that makes people want to, want to be near her and want to keep her happy and everything, but it's misguided, right? That
Yes.
she's yeah.
And there'll be
It
a big
captivating
reveal.
madness is a great word for great phrase for it, Jay. That's a good one.
There'll be
Yeah.
a big reveal regarding all the letters that she gets that is facilitating this delusion. Um, there's a great line where she demands him to put the scene that he cut back in. He says, "I didn't argue with her. You don't yell at a sleepwalker. He may fall and break his neck."
What a great line. That is,
Yep.
oh my God, what a great line.
Yep.
And like it's that even that foreshadows the ending, right? Like she's walking in
Yes.
a dream. She doesn't realize.
Yep. And no one wants to wake her, so they just let it happen.
It's like the whole premise of the movie is
Yep.
like, don't wake up a sleepwalker.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yep.
just in every little detail, man. This movie is great.
It is. It is. It's really well written. Imagine that. So he stays the night in the room above the garage because he finishes reading, or he stops reading for the night. It's late, and she's like, "Ah, you can stay here. You don't need to go home." And like, "Come on, we'll put up." Like, I insist. So they make up a room for him above the garage, and when he gets in there, Max, the butler, says like, "I made the bed for you already," and he's like, "Wait, why? How'd you make the bed for me if you didn't know I was gonna stay here?" And he just doesn't answer the question. It's like, ooh, because he knew that's what was going to happen, so he just did it in advance because he's seen this play out before. More on that later. So he's like looking out the window and he sees like there's a tennis court with like a sagging net and it's all overgrown, and he sees an empty pool. Well, mostly empty because there's some rats fighting over food in the bottom of it. And then he looks out the window and he sees that the guy who actually was supposed to come with the coffin for the dead monkey, or the dead chimp, I should say. They see them bury him in the yard, and it's all very dignified. He describes it as feeling like, it was an actual child. The whole thing is rather strange, right? But he wakes up in the morning and his room is full of all of his things from his apartment. What the hell? How did all those get there? So he's pretty fighting mad about it. He goes back into the main house, and there's this great shot where Max is playing the organ like a creepy weirdo. And like Joe Gillis like comes in, we see his hands in the foreground, and it looks like he's actually playing it. Like it's very convincing, right? They probably got someone else's hands for that, or maybe he can play the organ. Who knows?
I mean, maybe he can play the organ. People
Maybe.
were very multi-talented back in the day.
It's true. So he's yelling at him. He's like, "Why'd you come bring my stuff? I didn't ask you to do that." And Norma Desmond's like, "Relax. Come on, man. Just take a chill pill." And so, yeah. And so he's not happy about this because they clearly like took his keys and went into his old apartment to go grab all his things, and he did it all without asking him. But as it goes on, you're going to see him just sort of like he'll push back a little bit, but then ultimately sort of relent. And then like as this goes on, they just take more and more of his autonomy and his agency until he's basically like a pet for her. He's basically the chimpanzee,
Yep.
There's
Yep.
something there. And so, he continues writing. She's like signing autographs and all that sort of stuff. And then he describes how, to keep themselves busy, there was sometimes, or like to entertain themselves because she didn't like going out, they would watch old movies at her like home theater. There's like an oil painting that could be like pulled up with a rope to reveal like a silver screen, and they would watch movies. And then he goes, "You probably don't have to guess whose movies we watched." Because they just watched
it's just
all
her,
old
like
movies.
her old movie. Yeah, it's great. Well, and like at the one point where he walks through the room too, all the photos are just her.
Yes.
It's just pictures of her
Everywhere.
And here's a fun little fact that I did not know about my own family until I was watching this with my parents last night. My great grandmother, evidently, in her house, used to have a bunch of framed photographs of nobody but herself. She would cut everybody else out of the pictures and just frame them with only her in it.
That's
That's fucking crazy. I never met the woman, but I kind of wish I had now because
Yeah.
that is a wild, wild thing to do.
yeah. I think you could read into that. I think you could read that.
I think you absolutely should. Yeah. So, yeah.
He says like, so much nicer than going out, she'd say. The plain fact was that she was afraid of that world outside, afraid it would remind her that time had passed. right? Which is great. Um, there are always her pictures. That's all she wanted to see. And she said, she's there and she's like, still wonderful, isn't it? And no dialogue. It reminds me of like Dan Aykroyd and his Crystal Skull vodka. He's like, and the best part is no glycol. And Larry King's like, what? What the hell?
What the hell is glycol?
She says, we didn't need dialogue. We had faces. And there just aren't any faces like that anymore. It's like, those idiot producers, those imbeciles, haven't they got any eyes? Have they forgotten what a star looks like? And then she stands up.
Oh, dude, the shot where she stands up in the projector
Yes.
is
I use it as
awesome.
the thumbnail for this stream if you want to look at it. It's incredible. Like she's illuminated from behind by the light from the projector. I just love as a touch that like there's no music accompanying, because often, you know, when you watch silent movies, there'd be someone playing like a little player organ or maybe even like a small ensemble, you know, maybe just someone at a piano, they'd be accompanying the movie. But because Max has to run the projector and like so he can't also play the organ, they just watch them in silence and you just hear the projector going click, 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 whirring and all that sort of stuff. And then the way she stands up with the light illuminating her and she's all, you know, it's beautiful. The lighting is absolutely stunning. You know, I'll show them. I'll be up there again. So help me. You know, it's great.
Yeah,
it's really,
absolutely
really good.
Fantastic. Beautiful shot. There's a lot of times watching this movie where I was just like, wow, that's a great shot. Wow. There's one later on where he lets Betty leave, right? And he comes back to turn into the house and she's on the balcony above him from behind the bars and he walks back in and closes it behind him. What an incredible shot.
Yeah, this like gilded cage he's stuck in. Yeah. It's great. So then
have they forgotten what a star looks like? Cut to Rachel Ziegler.
Weird. And so then we're introduced to the Waxworks, as Joe Gillis calls them, her old, you know, silent film friends. The most famous of which is Buster Keaton, and he just looks sad. And then, while they're playing bridge or whatever it is they're playing, someone comes to the door and Max tells them that Joe Gillis isn't here, but they somehow found the car in the garage and they're towing it away. But, you know, Max has successfully convinced him that he isn't here, that he just dropped the car here. So now he doesn't even have a car. So we're building up the sort of like losing of his autonomy and losing of his connections to the outside world. So now he doesn't even have the car to like leave if he wants to, essentially, right? And so he's not happy about that. But
she's so very nonchalant about it, right? Because he asks her for some money, but she doesn't want to interrupt the bridge game.
Yes.
And he wants to just like go out. He wants to go out and save the car. She has no interest in doing that. She comes out after it's already been impounded and towed away. And he's kind of just like, well, you know, now I'm stuck. And she's like, oh, that's fine. You have a car. You know, we have a car. You don't need one. You don't need that thing. You know, why would you want any other car besides my car? You know.
She says, not one of those cheap new things made out of chromium and spit. I like how like derisive she is of all new things, you know. But I mean, to its credit, the 1932 car still works, right? So you know, it was built to last. The whole thing was upholstered in leopard skin and had one of those car phones he describes, all gold plated. And she's giving him a hard time for his clothes. They're driving around. It's the next day or whatever. And she says, like, oh, what's that shirt you're wearing? It's dreadful. Excuse me. And then, and she's like, and he says, what's wrong with it? She says, nothing if you work in the filling station. And also, I'm getting rather bored with your sport jacket and same baggy pants. And so she decides to go take him shopping to buy him all these nice clothes. And he doesn't really want that because he doesn't like being sort of like doted on like this.
Yeah, he's not comfortable being a kept man. You know, This is a very, like, something that is not, he doesn't want to be a sugar baby, basically. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not a comfortable position for him.
But he's being turned into one, and he doesn't really have a lot of better options, is what he comes to believe. And she says, oh, why begrudge me a little fun? I just want you to look nice. You know? And so then they get him some new clothes and all that sort of stuff, and like he get like camel's hair coats and all that sort of stuff, and like tuxedos with tails.
when the guy offers the more expensive coat, he's like, if the lady's paying, why not go for the higher end? You know, it's a little bit
Mm-hmm.
pricier, but why wouldn't you do that? And he's like, the camel hair will do.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's really does not want it.
Yeah, because he's very
There's
much
nothing like blue
embarrassed.
flannel for a man, and you
Yeah.
need ah, God.
And
Yeah, well, the car probably only gets 10 miles to the gallon because it's dragging around the phone, Kevo. I think that's that might be the reason.
I like when uses the car phone to like call to Max.
Call to Max in the front of
Yeah,
the
yeah, because they're driving in a convertible, so she uses the
Yeah.
phone to call him. It's just a funny little detail. Next we know he is being moved into the main house because it's December and it's the only time it rains in Southern California. So the rain starts and the room over the garage has a very leaky ceiling, so he can't stay there anymore. So now he is led in to the main house and he gets his own little bedroom on the top floor and he's like, "Whose bedroom was this?" And Max is like, "The husband." Or the husband's, I should say. She's been married 3 times. And we're starting to see that like he is being led down a particular path.
hmm
He might turn into number 4. Is this? I can't remember when it happens. Actually, I don't think it's here. I think it's later, so I won't say it yet. Um, with the reveal about Max, I think it's later, right?
That's way later.
That's
Yeah,
way
that's
later.
that's
Okay.
much later. Yeah.
Yeah, I won't get ahead of myself then. So it's New Year's Eve, and he knows that Norma is throwing a party. He doesn't really know who's coming or anything like that. Neither does Max, because Norma has arranged all the details herself. So he comes downstairs. He's wearing his tuxedo with tails and all that sort of stuff. And in this big ballroom that she has in her house, there's like a live band playing music. And
There's
they're
an
very good.
orchestra. It's like a half orchestra is
Oh yeah,
playing just for her. She's drunk and having a great time. There's nobody else there.
they're playing
He
like
comes
tango
down. She
music. There's a fun
There's
detail.
nothing like tile for the tango. Yeah, she's
Hmm.
like, I had it completely redone. Careful, it's slippery. I just had it waxed. She's just spending money to, live like glamorously, without
She spared no
thoughts,
expense.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so he comes down and she's there on the floor and she's like, "Come, let's get a drink. Let's dance." And he's like, "I don't know how to dance," essentially. He says, "Come on." Like she says, Valentino said there's nothing like tile for a tango. And she says, "Come on." He says, "Not on the same floor with Valentino." She says, "Just follow me." And the funny thing about that is that like he sort of implies that he doesn't know how to tango, but tango is not a dance you can just do without knowing.
Yeah.
It's complicated. It's a complicated one compared to a lot of other ballroom dances. But she's like, "Just follow me." And so piling on this theme where he's being sort of emasculated and being turned into a kept man. Now she's leading him in the dance. All the details are there, right? Like
Yeah.
she's got his arms over his and like all the sort of stuff like that. All these details. And then Max, like at one point, the like veil is like that she's wearing is kind of poking him, which is why she's like, "Why are you leaning so far back?" And he's like, "The thing is poking me, it's tickling me." So she takes it off and throws it to the floor. And then we see Max pick it up, and he just has that same sort of like brick wall expression that he has, but like you can read into it that he has to watch something he doesn't particularly enjoy seeing, as we will learn later. And then later they're sitting on the couch and Joe's like, "Hey, so, when's everyone else coming? It's like almost 10 o'clock. And she's like, "Oh, there's no one else coming. It's just us."
It's great.
It's so good. Such a great little reveal. So, and then this is when he says, "I feel trapped like the cigarette on the weird contraption on her finger." And we see her smoking with it and all that sort of stuff. And eventually he kind of gets a little fed up, right? And she's like, "Oh, what a wonderful next year it's going to be. What fun we'll have. I'll fill the pool for you. I'll open my house in Malibu. You can have the whole ocean. And once our picture is finished, I'll buy you a boat and we'll sail to Hawaii." And he's like, "Stop it. You're not going to buy me anything more." And she's like, "Oh, don't be silly." And he's like, "Here." And then I can't remember what she gives him. It's some sort of piece of jewelry, like a watch or something. I can't remember. No, it's the gold-plated cigarette. Yeah, it's the
the
gold-plated
cigarette.
cigarette. Right.
It's the cigarette case.
That's what it is. You're right. And
Which we'll find out later is inscribed with "mad about the boy."
yep, Yep.
Where yeah, she's great. She's so delusional and presumptuous, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just
She's mad about the
yeah.
boy. I mean, she certainly is mad. That's for sure. It's like, Norm, I can't take it. You've bought me enough. She's like, oh, shut up. I'm rich. I'm richer than all this new Hollywood trash. I've got $1 million, which I imagine. Actually, you know what? Assuming the story takes place in 1950, which I believe it does. How much is?
Yeah, I think it's contemporary, right?
Yeah, so that's 13. She has $13 million to her name. That's pretty good. It's pretty good for someone that hasn't worked in years, right?
Yeah. Well, and she talks about how she owns,
Yep.
half the block, and she has oil
In
that pulls
Bakersfield,
barrels out. So like
pumping, pumping, pumping.
so she's got the money, but also she's making money
Yeah, she
through,
has passive
so
income.
it's and like for a second, because I couldn't remember exactly how it went. For a second, when she wouldn't give him the money to save his car from the repo guys, I thought we were gonna do a storyline where she's like actually kind of just like she's not really as rich as she says she is. She's just sort of like coasting
On
on
fumes, yeah.
fumes. But no, it turns out actually no, she's pretty wealthy and she actually just doesn't have anything to do, and so like anything to do with the money. And so this is why everything is like so one of the reasons why she's going so crazy, right, is she doesn't have anything to occupy her time.
Yes.
She's just sitting around waiting to be a star again
Mm-hmm.
and, pumping out a shitty 700-hour script,
Yeah. Yeah, I like it when she says, I own 3 blocks downtown. I've got oil in Bakersfield. Pumping, pumping, pumping. What's it for but to buy us anything we want? Right? That's
Yeah, she's already talking about them like they're married,
Yep,
you
and he
know.
says, cut out that us business. She's like, what's the matter with you? He says, what right do you have to take me for granted? Has it ever occurred to you that I may have a life of my own, that there may be some girl that I'm crazy about? And then this incenses her, right? She's like, who, like, who, some car hop or dress extra? He says, what I'm trying to say is that I'm all wrong for you. You want a Valentino, someone with polo ponies, a big shot. And she says, what you're trying to say is that you don't want me to love you. Say it. She's very, very melodramatic. And then he
Yes.
leaves. He leaves without saying it, right? And he's like, I didn't know where I was going. I just had to get out of there. So he walks, and he tries to hitch a ride, but I assume he walks quite a bit of it. And he said, I didn't know where I was going. I just had to get out of there. I had to be with people my own age. I had to hear someone laugh again, which is a great little detail,
Yep.
just to imagine that she literally hasn't laughed in the entire time he's been there. So he goes to visit Archie Green, who
It's
is
entirely driven by spite and narcissism. Yeah.
yes, and self-love. So he says he thought of Archie Green, which is an assistant director that he knows. He said there's bound to be a New Year's shindig going on in his apartment down on Las Palmas. Writers without a job, composers without a publisher, actresses so young they still believe the guys in the casting offices. Never change, Hollywood. A bunch of kids who didn't give a hoot just so long as they had a yuck to share. So he goes to a party where a bunch of young people and people his own age and people in the industry are all having a good time or whatever. He finds Archie, and he finds out that Archie is dating the girl who hated his script at the beginning of the movie, Mrs. Betty Schaefer, or Miss Betty Schaefer. And they have a little
Real quick, Georgius and Jay are pointing out in the chat that when he tries to leave, the watch chain gets caught on the gate, which is a very nice
it
visual
is a
metaphor.
nice detail. Yes. Yeah.
Very good to
that's
point out.
great.
Thank you guys for making sure we don't skip that.
It's kind of funny. When I
that's
watched it, I noticed that, and my only thought was like, oh, that's kind of a funny detail, but I didn't really think about what it meant.
Yeah,
That's good.
It's
That's
like
pretty good.
when I saw it, and I was like, yeah, that's very relatable. Watch chains. I hate it when that happens. Peasantry never thinks about what happens when your watch chain gets caught on a door.
Wasserman,
They don't.
Wasserman asked, does he narrate it off screen or as character? It's off screen. It's disembodied narration. Yes. And so
Just like imagining the Family Guy bit where he's like narrating his own life, and he's doing it out loud to everybody around him. It's like, I looked at the sad breakfast Lois had placed in front of me, and I saw her drooping face. and sagging breasts. I awoke several hours later in a daze.
Yep.
Yeah, Hollywood loves kids. Yes, they do.
So he sees Betty Schaefer, and Betty Schaefer's like, like that script that there's a small bit part character in that I actually thought was really good. It's the only bit of your writing that I actually enjoyed. And
She's so good at, like, yeah, she's a perfect match for him in a way. Like, she's just as snarky.
yes, yep, yep. They have a nice sort of writerly banter back and forth. Yeah, it's great. But she's currently dating Archie, so that's a little bit of moral ambiguity there because he clearly has a thing for her and she has a thing for him, but she's currently dating someone else, so there's a little bit of tension there, right? And she's like, this thing you were writing, there was the small character, a teacher that I actually thought was really nice. I think you could make that into a movie. And he's like, fine, it's yours. Do whatever you want with it. Or there's actually a great moment where he's like, I had a teacher like that. And she's like, oh, that's why it's so good. It's true.
Yeah,
kind of implying
yeah.
everything he was writing was very like, I don't know, what he thought people wanted to hear or what he thought audiences and studios wanted to see and make and all that. And then so when he actually writes something that's a little bit from the heart, it actually resonates a little better, right? And she sees that, and she sees like a little like the potential he has, right? That if he would actually write something a bit more with a bit more passion, right, he could actually be pretty good. And so of course that sort of sparks the passion in him. And so he gets the phone and he says, Max, I want you to have everything of mine brought back to my apartment. Like, I'm not like, grab all my things and bring it back here. Like, only the things that she didn't give him, essentially. And he's like, I can't do that right now, Mr. Gillis. The doctors are here. And
I'm sorry, Mr. Gillis, I can't do
I'm
that.
afraid I can't do that. And Max reveals that the doctor is here because Norma tried to kill herself. She slit her wrists. Because she's one of those. She's one of those people who threatens suicide when things aren't going well for her. So she slits her wrists, and luckily, thankfully, she doesn't die. Well, I guess ultimately not thankfully for Joe Gillis, but that's beside the point. And so he goes back and finds her with her wrists all bandaged up, and he's trying to talk to her. What? There's some good dialogue here, but I just want to make sure. It's like, what kind of silly thing was that to do? He says to her. He's like, to fall in love with you, that was the idiotic thing. He says, it sure would have made attractive headlines. Great star kills herself for unknown writer. She says, great stars have great pride. Now go away. Go to that girl of yours. He's like, look, I was making that up because I thought the whole thing was a mistake. I didn't want to hurt you. You've been good to me. You're the only person in this stinking town that has been good to me. Right? So he feels obviously pretty guilty about it at this point. Because it is kind of true that he was very, very much down on his luck and the town had not treated him well, so to speak. And so she's been nice to him, and he's kind of, when she tries to kill herself, he feels bad, like it was his fault, obviously, and that he had taken all her gifts for granted, right? He feels a little morally conflicted about it. He says, why don't you just say thank you and go? And he says, not until you promise to act like a sensible human being. And she says, I'll do it again. It's like, oh, Jesus Christ. He says, Happy New Year, Norma. It's like, oof, rough.
Yeah.
Then we cut ahead in time. The pool has been filled up and, he's using it and having a grand old time. She's sitting by the pool in her Edith Head costume designed wardrobe and all that sort of stuff. And, oh yeah, I think he gets a call. And Max lies about what it is, right? Because I think it's a lot of people trying to reach him. Is that what happens? I can't remember.
Yeah, something about like Paramount. I'm fielding a lot of calls from Paramount because they've been working on the script and they finally got it up in front of Cecil B. DeMille,
mm-hmm.
and they've gotten it to Paramount, and so they start fielding calls from someone over there, Gordon Cole, over there at Paramount.
Yes,
and
she is mad because Cecil DeMille hasn't called her himself, and she's like, "Oh, he has some lackey doing it." And Gordon Cole actually ends up being the head of Paramount, but she doesn't know that. And so she is like, "Well, we're gonna go, meet him. Right? No, that's later. That's later.
Yeah, she at first she's like, "We're gonna make him wait. You know, you have to come to me directly.
Right,
You know, like
exactly.
what do you
Her
get? Yeah."
pride, her arrogance, right?
And they keep fielding the calls, and eventually they'll end up going, and they'll find out why.
Yep. And then he asks, like, "Are you really going to send that script to DeMille?" And she's like, "Yes, I am. This is the day. Here's the chart from my astrologer." Like,
Oh, Betty is trying to reach him on the phone, and
okay,
Max keeps saying, "No, he's not here."
right. That's what I thought.
Yeah,
That's what I thought. I couldn't remember exactly.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, they filled in the rat fight pit. I know, what a shame. But listen, he always wanted a pool, okay? Yeah. So, I'm trying to remember, like, because they end up at the drugstore, but I'm trying to remember why they go out. Um, oh, like a few evenings later, we were going to the house of one of the waxworks for some bridge. That's right. She taught me how to play bridge by then, just as she taught me some fancy tango steps and what wine to drink with what fish. And she's like, that idiot, he forgot to fill my cigarette case. So they stop at the drugstore, right? And when they stop at the
Like he offers some of hers. She's like, "I hate those. They make me off." Right?
Yes.
And so he's like, "Oh, fine. Then give me some money. I'll go to the drugstore." And he meets Betty at the drugstore. Yeah,
Yep.
because she's there with Archie, and all the hangout. It's the hangout spot for all the the young Hollywood up and comers. And he walks in wearing full evening dress, which again something that is like they're off put by it. So they're like, what the hell? Like you're hanging out with the fancy set. You've kind of left us behind, sort of thing. And he's a little snarky about it, right? This is not where he tells her just use my story as you see fit. This is like she's trying to.
She says that Sheldrake likes the new angle and that she's been working on it. She's got a few pages of room, but she wants to write it with him, and he's like, "Oh, I've given up on writing." I don't. Well, he says, "I've stopped writing things for spec. Actually, I've given up writing entirely." Right? And then Archie is speculating. It's like, "Oh, you must be involved with the government or something like that. This guy's in the pay of a foreign government. Check out those studs. Check out those cufflinks." And he's like, "Sorry, I gotta go. I gotta run." And then he gets back in and he's like, "What took you so long?" And he's like, "Oh, sorry, I just ran into some people I know." I was like, "Where are my cigarettes?" And he goes, "Norma, you're smoking too much."
I love how he covers himself on that one. It's pretty funny.
Whenever she suspected I was getting bored, she would put on a live show for me, the Norma Desmond Follies. Her first number was always the Max Sennett Bathing Beauty. Yep, and so she's like twirling a little umbrella and she's putting on a show, and then she kind of like jumps over on the couch with him and like being all lovey-dovey, and then she leaves and comes back dressed as Charlie Chaplin with the little mustache and the cane.
She actually does a pretty good Charlie Chaplin.
She does a great Charlie Chaplin. Yeah, like legitimately.
It's not
really
seductive in the slightest, but it is.
But it is pretty funny.
It is pretty good.
Yeah, it's legitimately a good impression.
Which I just find that very interesting, right? That she's like, "Oh yeah, like you're getting bored, you're not interested, like I'm gonna try to," like she's trying to seduce him, right?
Yes.
By like basically, and her way of doing that is by just like, look at how well I can imitate other silent film icons, right? Like doesn't that impress you? Don't you love that? It's it's the kind of thing that she would find attractive and interesting, not anything that he would be interested in. And yeah, I think there's a lot of really good character stuff, very good subtle character stuff that plays well for jokes, as well as psychological development.
Absolutely. So while she's performing her Charlie Chaplin routine, she gets interrupted. She's upset about it, but Max tells him that it's somebody by the name of Gordon Cole. He says it's very important. She's like, "Certainly it's important. It's important enough for DeMille to call me personally." The very idea of having some assistant call me. Turns out he is the executive at Paramount. But she does not know that, right? So she says, "We've made 12 pictures together, his greatest success. Maybe," and he's like, "Maybe he's busy. Maybe he's shooting." She's like, "I know that trick. He's trying to belittle me. He's trying to get my price down. I've waited 20 years for this call. Now DeMille can wait until I'm good and ready." And then it says, about 3 days later, she was good and ready. such a great little joke.
My goodness, yeah.
incredible as it may seem, there'd been some more of those urgent calls from Paramount, so she put on about a half a pound of makeup, fixed it up with a veil, and set forth to see DeMille in person, right? So then they show up at the gate to Paramount, the gate to the Paramount lot, and the young guy working security there is like, who are you? You don't have a pass. But there's an older guy who works there. He's like, oh my God, it's Norma Desmond. It's like, she can come on. Like, she helped build this studio is sort of how he treats it, right? It's like, she doesn't need a pass. She can come on. She's Paramount,
Royalty.
Royalty, thank you. That's the word I was looking for. So she finds the set where Cecil B. DeMille is filming whatever big production, and a guy comes up. One of the assistants comes up to Cecil B. DeMille in the director's chair. And he's like, Norma Desmond's here to see you. He's like, Norma Desmond? You know, like, oh, God, the dialogue here is really good. Okay. Where is it? God damn it. Why can't I find it?
He says, Norma Desmond, that old broad?
Something like that. God damn it. Why can't I find this line?
Man, she used to be hot. That's basically word for word. I've got a photographic memory for this kind of stuff. And he's filming. So Georgius points out he's filming Samson and Delilah at the time in this thing, and that's very much like in the same vein as the Salome
The biblical
movie that
epic,
she wants to
yeah.
make, right? Like it's a biblical adaptation, like old like Ten Commandments type, type thing. So kind of showing that like they already have one of those. They got one in the pipeline. They don't need another sword and sandals biblical adaptation,
Yeah.
here.
Hey, Hugh,
They're already in the mix.
Do you want to hear a fun fact?
Sure.
Cecil B. DeMille was actually directing Samson and Delilah at the time. Like that's not just,
that's I assumed when
okay.
When he said that
Yeah.
is also the case,
real
right?
movie.
But it's
Yeah.
like it
Apparently,
is a real movie.
Because originally he was thinking Cecil B. DeMille thought that he wanted Nancy Olson, who played Betty Schaefer, to be Delilah. Apparently, that didn't actually come true, but it's just an interesting fun fact. So I found the dialogue I was looking for. Someone comes up to him and he says, "Norma Desmond is coming in to see you, Mr. DeMille." And he's like, "Norma Desmond?" And then he says, "Yeah, she must be 1,000,000 years old." And DeMille goes, "I hate to think what that puts me. I could be her father." And he's like, "Sorry, Mr. DeMille. Sorry about that." And DeMille says, "It must be that awful script of hers." He's like, "What can I tell her? What can I say?" And he's like, "I can tell you, you're tied up in the projection room. I can give her the brush." He says, 30 million fans have given her the brush. Isn't that enough? It's like, you didn't know Norma Desmond as the lovely little girl of 17 with more courage and wit and heart than ever came together in one youngster. And the guy says, "I understand she was a terror to work with." And he says, "Only towards the end. A dozen press agents working overtime can do terrible things to the human spirit." He says, "Hold everything." Right, so when we were introduced to Cecil B. DeMille, I quite liked it. Like, she must be 1,000,000 years old. And he's like, "Well, I hate to know what that makes me because I'm older than her." And he's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
sorry." And then he's like, man, he feels sympathy for her, right?
Sympathy for her, but he's also talking about her as if she's dead.
Kind of.
Like, yeah, even when he's like, "Oh, only towards the end," he's like, "There's no the career," like, because the thing is, she might be a terror to work with, and her script might be trash, but like she could still be working, right?
Yeah.
Like but it is
Like Gloria
just
Swanson
they've moved
was
on.
still working. I mean,
Yeah.
like not like more than the character was anyway.
Yes.
Are we still streaming? I'm seeing the Wheel of Death. And okay, no, we're still there. We're good.
Okay.
False alarm. Anyway, so but I like that he's like, his assistant's like, I could tell her you're caught up in the projection room. He's like, "No, I'll go talk to her. Like, she deserves that." Essentially, he really steals the show, as someone mentioned in the chat, and I think like there's something really nice about the way he tries to handle all this.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, "Hello, Mr. DeMille. It's good to see you." It's like, "The last time I saw you was someplace very gay. I remember waving to you. I was dancing on a table." And he says, "A lot of people were. Lindbergh had just landed in Paris. Come on in."
That's a great line too, though.
Yeah.
Like, it's like,
And she's like, I must apologize for not calling you. And she says, you'd better. I'm very angry. He's like, well, as you can see, I'm terribly busy. He's like, that's no excuse. You read the script, of course. He's like, I did. Mm-hmm. He's like, then you could have picked up the telephone yourself instead of leaving it to one of your assistants. He's like, what assistant? He's like, oh, don't play innocent. Someone named Gordon Cole. And he's like, oh, okay. We eventually learn he gets Gordon Cole on the phone. We find out that Gordon Cole was only calling him because she's trying to get a hold of Norma Desmond. And because Gordon Cole, as he says, it's that car of hers, an old Isotta Francini, or however you say it. Her chauffeur drove it on to the lot the other day. It looks just right for the Crosby picture. We want to rent it for a couple of weeks, right? So it turns out the head of Paramount is only really calling her. People have only been calling her at all, not because of this awful script she sent in, but because she has this old 1932 car that would be a perfect picture car for one of their period pieces. And so they want to rent it from her. And so Cecil B. DeMille hears this and decides to lie and not tell her that because he knows it will kind of break her spirit a little bit. But before he can tell her all that, there's a guy up in the rafters with a absolutely fucking giant light. He's like, hey, look, it's Norma Desmond. And he sort of points the light at her. And everyone kind of comes up like, oh my God, it's Norma Desmond. Everyone starts crowding around her because she's a legend, right? It's funny, when I first watched this, I wasn't sure if this was really happening. But the movie does treat it like it's really happening.
Yeah, it does feel a little ambiguous at the time, right? And I think that that's something that David Lynch very much takes inspiration from in his movies, where like this kind of thing will happen and it will be like in this movie it's not ambiguous at all. They all kind of like get back to work eventually.
Yes.
But he does it later on and kind of just and makes it almost as if it is like he'll do things like this where it is sort of ambiguous as to whether or not this is really happening. And like Mulholland Drive absolutely does this.
Sure. Absolutely.
Like the scene where everybody's like, oh wow, Betty, you did so great in that audition. Like this, it's very inspired by this. It's pretty great. And yeah, so when Gordon Cole picks up the phone, he's like, there is a very nice car in her garage, and we would like to rent it. And he's screaming, and he's got little hearing aids because he don't hear so good. Yeah, that's...
Yeah. Topaz Dude says, apparently her line about without me, there isn't a Paramount was by Wilder after Gloria Swanson complained about having to audition for the role and said IRL, I did 20 films for Paramount. Yeah, I could believe it. I can believe it. I did learn that Gloria Swanson wasn't their first choice. They approached a couple other aging silent film actresses, and I can't remember their names right now, but one of them like demanded to like do massive rewrites on the dialogue for her character, and so like, well, we can't, we're not doing that. And then the other one was like she had some crazy deal where she gets ownership of any movie she's in. And they're like, well, we can't do that. You know what I mean?
What
like,
the fuck? That's
sort of
crazy.
Like remnants of crazy deals that some of these early actors managed to achieve because they were so good for the studio and everything like that.
Oh, yeah. Georgios, thank you for reminding me of that. So there's a really nice touch where a boom mic kind of like swings over top of her and it ruffles the feather on her hat and she pushes it away and she like, it's like sound is like haunting her.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The talky bits of movies are still taunting her, you know. That's a great touch. I mean, there's a lot of really good like little visual metaphors, right? Like
little
throughout
details,
the
a lot
whole
of great
thing.
details. So Cecil B. DeMille, he comes back and he's like, he doesn't tell her that Gordon Cole was only calling about the picture car, and he's like, you know. She says, we'll be working again, won't we, Chief? We'll make our greatest picture. And he's like, that's what I wanted to talk to you about, Norman. She's like, it's a good script, isn't it? And he goes, well, it has some good things in it, yes, but it would be a very expensive picture. And she's like, oh, I don't care about the money. I just want to work again. You don't know what it means to know that you want me. Nothing would please me more, Norma. He's like, if it were possible. And remember, darling, I won't work before 10 in the morning and never after 4:30 in the afternoon. So like, she wants to work again, but she's not so desperate that she would actually work really hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's so funny to me, that little detail. I don't work before 10 and not after 4:30. It's like, yeah, this is going to be a very expensive picture, guys, especially if she's only working for like 6 hours.
So a couple of people have mentioned, and like the and we talked a little bit just now about the alternate casting, like that they had in mind at first. Mae West was approached, a
Yes, that's one of
former,
them, I
yeah.
think. Yeah.
She was, and so Georgius was saying a couple of others were insulted at being asked to take the part. She was one of the ones insulted at being asked to take the part because she thought of herself as a sex symbol even into her 50s and 60s. She was just like, "Are you fucking kidding me? I'm not gonna play a has-been. Fuck you," and basically turned it down. They
To
also
her
wanted
credit, really
Marlon
quick.
Brando.
To her credit, she does look good in this movie, especially for her age.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
she looks great for 50 in the 1950s. Like
Hmm.
yeah, she looks fantastic. Yeah, and they wanted Marlon Brando for Joe Gillis originally as well,
Um,
which like
I'm glad they
that would
didn't
have
do
been
that.
a. I'm very glad they didn't do that because I feel like even in 1950 he was already overacting. Like we would have had two incredible over actors, and I think it would have just diminished a little bit what
I
Gloria
can't.
Swanson brings, right? Like if we had Marlon Brando in there,
Would you describe
like
his stuff as overacting? Maybe a little.
yeah, I would definitely
It's like
describe his
because it's not theatrical because he's a mumbler, right? He sort of ushered in an age of mumblers. Um,
yeah, but he's a mumbler, but he really like seizes on scenes, right?
yes.
And he'll chew scenery no problem,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like he has no problem doing that.
Yeah, I see what you
She
mean.
is a theatrical, dramatic overactor, and I think if you put the two of them together, it's just gonna like it wouldn't have been a good choice. I
Yes.
think that having our who's our guy again
William
who plays
Holden.
yeah, having him play our straight man here, who's a little like a little bit more of like a solid, maybe even what do you call him, like a Humphrey Bogart type?
Yeah,
No, probably not.
maybe not. He's kind of he's very normal.
Yeah,
I don't
just like
want I
having
don't
like a
yeah,
normal guy is definitely to the benefit of the movie
I think
because
so.
she gets the magnetism,
Yes.
and that really just like plays into what
Like
the story is trying to do the
he's
whole
good
time.
in the movie, but like he's not as remarkable. Like he kind of
Yeah,
balances it out, right?
yeah. And,
Um
like I don't know, like if even in the 1950s, I don't know if Marlon Brando could have handled sort of taking the second, like not being the one in the spotlight, you
maybe.
know? Like
Maybe, yeah.
that's an interest, yeah.
There's a great little moment where he says, she says that she won't work before 10 and after 4:30 in the afternoon. And someone says, "We're ready for the shot, Mr. DeMille." And he says, like, "All right, Norma, why don't you just sit here and watch? Pictures have changed quite a bit." He's trying to very nicely say to her, like, "Why don't you just see how movies are made nowadays? Warm up to it again. See if it's something you want to do because it's changed a lot, Norma, and I think you need to sort of like adjust to the time a little bit." Outside, uh, you know, Joe finds the sort of readers' offices where Betty is working, and so he goes up there to talk to her for a little bit. And this is where I believe he says that, you know what, you can have yourself. Right. Okay. So just so you don't think I'm a complete swine, if there's anything in Dark Windows, which is the original story he wrote, he said, if there's anything in Dark Windows you can use, take it. It's all yours. And she's like, well, for heaven's sake, come in, have a chair. And he's like, I mean it. It's no good to me anyway. Help yourself. And he's like, now why would you do that? And he's like, if you get 100,000 for it, you buy me a box of chocolate creams. And if you get an Oscar, I get the left foot. He's trying to be cheeky and charming, but he's like, I'm not going to write this with you. You can just have it. Take it all you want. And she's just like, like I take you up on that in a minute. I'm just not good enough to do it all by myself, because she wants to be a writer, but she's just worked as a reader. Like he has much more experience as a writer, so she wants them to write it together. And he's like, what about all those ideas you had? And he's like, well, see if they make sense, And then she's like, well, to begin with, I think you should throw out all that psychological mess, exploring a killer's sick mind. And he's like, psychopaths sell like hotcakes. It's like, this is a story about teachers, their threadbare lives, their struggle. And so they're talking about their vision for the story, and eventually,
I love that. I love that little meta note there too. It's like, get rid of that stuff about exploring a killer's sick mind. That's not. We don't need that. This is a story about teachers. It's like that's exactly, which is we're in the midst of doing that right now, right? Like essentially. of exploring a killer's mind and what drives her to it, which I
Hmm.
think is fun.
So she's trying to get him to write it with her. She mentions that I think, has she mentioned that they're engaged yet? But anyway, yes, she mentions that
Yeah,
she's
she does it in
engaged
this
to
scene.
Artie and that he's out of town in Arizona making a Western, right? And so she's got a lot of free time and she's lonely, right? So she wants to work on the script with him and he doesn't want to do it. And he tells her, like, now stop being chicken hearted and write that story. And she's like, honest to goodness, I hate you. He says, and don't make it too dreary. And as he's about to walk out the door, he says, and how about this for a situation? She teaches daytimes, he teaches night, right? She's like, right. It's like, well, they don't even know each other, but they share the same room. It's cheaper that way. As a matter of fact, they sleep in the same bed, in shifts, of course. And she goes, are you kidding? Because I think it's good. Like,
Yeah.
it's such a ridiculous idea. I love it, but they're both into it, right?
Yeah.
And then he dips out, right? Um, Now, Cecil B. DeMille doesn't have the heart to tell her that they're not going to make that movie, right? And so she takes upon herself to like go crazy in her like beauty regimen to prepare herself, right? She spares no expense bringing by all these beauticians and massage therapists and blah 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 to come by the house and make her as beautiful, get her ready for those close-ups, right? And so
Yeah.
taking it to an extreme, and she's like got all this crazy stuff on her face, this kind of surreal like weird face masks and things like
He
that.
has a line of dialogue in this part too where he says something like she spares no expense and counts every calorie. She basically does everything except basically everything except like exercise and all that for it, right? Like except like actually preparing herself.
Mm-hmm.
Like yeah,
Let's see. It says, after that, an army of beauty experts invaded her house on Sunset Boulevard. She went through a merciless series of treatments. Like an athlete training for the Olympic Games, she counted every calorie, went to bed every night at 9. She was absolutely determined to be ready for those cameras that would never turn.
oh, okay, yeah. So yeah, but okay. So that was just something that I thought in there. Where I'm like, yeah, you did. Granted,
Well,
in the '50s, it wasn't quite as important, right? But she does sort of pay for everything that she can do like passively in
oh
order
yeah,
to
we're not
get
seeing her do
ready.
cardio,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
example. Someone asked in the chat when the apartment came out. The apartment came out 10 years later in 1960. So this is before the apartment. So at one point he's reading, and she comes in and she says, "Don't turn around. Keep your eyes on the book," because she's got some weird thing like helping stretch her neck folds, or whatever she has on. It's something weird. He's like, "I just came in to say goodnight." He's like, I've lost half a pound since Tuesday. He's like, "Good." And she says, "I was a little worried about the line of my throat. This woman has done wonders with it." He's like, "Okay, good." He's like, "You better get to bed yourself." He's like, I think I'll read a little longer." He's like, "You went out last night, didn't you, Joe?" He's like, "Why do you say that?" He's like, "I just happen to know it. I had a nightmare and I screamed for you and you weren't here. Where were you?" And he's like, I went for a walk." He's like, "No, you didn't. You took the car." He's like, "All right, I drove to the beach." It's like, "Norma, you don't want me to feel that I'm locked up in here, do you?" It's like, "Of course not, Joe. It's just that I don't want to be left alone. Not while I'm under this terrible strain. My nerves are being torn to shreds." It's like, "All I ask you is to be a little patient and a little kind." He's like, "Norma, I haven't done anything." You're like, he says it with a lot of sort of like resentment. He's like, "Of course you haven't. I wouldn't let you. Good night, darling." It's like, oh, it's like this is like this constant like little power struggle, right? In terms of like who wears the pants in this weird relationship, you know? And then as soon as she goes to bed, he like leaves again because it's the only little bit of like autonomy he has, right? So he goes back to the lot when it's when there's no one there, and he's hanging out with Betty, and they're working on the script, and they're taking a walk through all the lots and all the sets being built. There's a great shot of them walking in this like fake western town, and there's a guy on a wall like painting clouds onto the sky. You know what I mean? It's a great little kind of surreal detail, right? That they're walking through this fake
Yeah.
world, because so much of this story, because I think the subtitle of the movie, at least as it's written on the poster, is A Hollywood Story, right? So it's very much
Yeah.
about the sort of like glamour, but it's a facade of Hollywood, right? And so that they're like walking through this fake town that almost, I think she even says something about how like she likes it more than real towns or something like that. You know,
Yeah,
it's great. And we see them painting the clouds onto the sky. It's a great little detail. Um,
that is nice.
let's see. Well, she says, where is it? Da-da-da. You know, she's talking about the street. Look at this street, all cardboard, all hollow, all phony, all done with mirrors. You know, I like it better than any street in the world. Right? Like that
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a damn. That's a good line. It's
Yeah.
very much like the kind of thing that La La Land was trying to ape a little bit. You know?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I feel like I've said it before that I think one of David Lynch's best movies is Blue Velvet because it's just that classic sort of like there's like the nice exterior, but then there's like a sort of like rotting underbelly kind of thing, and I feel like this is one of those movies as well.
Yeah,
There's
very much.
all the glamour of Hollywood, but then there's this woman who is trying to hold on to a dream and a delusion that just isn't true anymore. And there's
Yep.
something rather perverse going on here.
So here's another interesting. Speaking of David Lynch, real quick, while we're on this, because I wanted to mention this earlier and I forgot to. The movie Salome, Salome, however
Salome,
you want to say
a
it,
fried salami
Salome,
sandwich.
Fried Salome. That movie came out in 1953 and starred Rita Hayworth. So just tangentially, kind of relates back to Mulholland Drive because of the Betty and Rita thing.
It's true.
That
Yeah,
is very interesting.
that they did make a movie only a couple of years later. That's funny.
Yeah.
We get a little bit of character work for Betty. We learn that Betty kind of grew up. She's an industry baby. So a couple generations in her family have all worked in the film industry in varying, positions like electricians. I think her mother was a wardrobe artist and stuff like that. So she grew up around Hollywood, right? She actually grew up across the street from this lot. So she used to come play here a lot as a kid. We
Yeah, we
learn,
get the note too that her nose was slightly to the left, so she got it surgically repaired, and then turned out she actually was pretty bad at acting, so that's why she didn't
yeah,
end up as a
yeah,
star, you know?
yeah, because she's a pretty young woman, so they thought maybe she could be an actress. And then she got a nose job for the sake of being a Hollywood star before even realizing or being told that she's just not actually a very good actress. And he says, like, that's the saddest thing I've ever heard. um, but she doesn't look at it that way, or at least that's not what she tells herself, right?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, not at all. It taught me a little sense. I got a job in the mailroom, worked up to the stenographic. Now I'm a reader, right? And so she handles it well, but it is basically like she had herself altered for the sake of Hollywood, only for it not to matter at all, you know?
Yeah, but like it is sort of the opposite story because like he's developing a relationship that he actually wants, a working
Yes.
relationship with a script that he actually wants here with her.
Mm-hmm.
And she, basically was not she was raised in this world and she wasn't a star. She wanted to be, and she basically was rejected. And her response was to be like, well, maybe there's something else that I could do. Like maybe I should work my way up and become a reader, and now I want to be a writer. That's her philosophy, as opposed to the entitled and like narcissistic view that our villainess has
Mm-hmm.
as she moves through. And so it's like we get a nice foil created for her here, specifically in these dialogue lines, which I think is a very strong choice to bring it in like right now. We've had her
Yes.
kind of floating around the outsides, and we're starting to build up to the climax. It's another thing we didn't quite like. We didn't mention directly, but I think this movie is very well paced.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
like it's at a everything happens exactly when you want it to happen. You
Yes.
know?
It's like a slow, steady, hypnotic sort of like lulling pace, but it's really good. You know what I mean? It's just like
Yeah.
it's steady. It doesn't feel like any particular section of the story lingers too long or rushes or anything like that. It's just kind of just slowly pulling you along. So speaking of which, after, going on his little date, walking around the empty lot and working on the script with Betty, he comes home and Max is like, "Well, you better be careful, coming up so she doesn't see that you've been gone again." And so, he's starting to get fed up with this whole like walking on eggshells around her and like feeding into her delusions. So Joe says like, like I'm writing a script and I'm going to finish it no matter what. And Max is like, it's just that I'm greatly worried about Madame. And he's like, oh, sure you are. And we're not helping her any, feeding her lies and more lies, getting herself ready for a picture. What happens when she finds out? And Max says, she never will. That is my job, and it has been for a long time. And this is where we get a little bit of Max's backstory, which I think is fascinating. He says, like, you must understand, I discovered her when she was 16. I made her a star, and I cannot let her be destroyed. It's like, oh, he's like, he built her into this, and so he can't see her fall from grace, right? He says, you made her a star. And he's like, yes, I directed all her early films, which is partially true. Like the movie we watched was directed by this guy. Like, that's such crazy casting. It's amazing. Anyway, and he's very good. As I think that's worth saying. Max is very good. Eric von Stoheim, however you say it, gives a great performance as the sort of weird, kind of mysterious, ominous butler. And he says there were 3 young directors who showed promise in those days: D.W. Griffith, Cecil B. DeMille, and Max von Meyerling, which is the fictional name he has in the movie. And Gillis says, and she's turned you into a servant. He says, it was I who asked to come back, humiliating as it may seem. I could have continued my career, only I found everything unendurable after she had left me. You see, I was her first husband. Man, what a reveal. Yep. That's so good, because it just makes everything we've seen so far even weirder.
Yeah, like, exactly. It's like, whoa, what the hell, man?
Yeah.
It's very difficult to imagine being that enamored.
Yes.
With someone.
That really enamored with her, but also like beholden to her. Like you feel responsible for her because she was just a plucky 16-year-old when you found her and made her into this great star. And now she's kind of like living on the fumes of that delusion. And so you take it upon yourself not to let her fall so hard that she can't cope with it. You know what I mean? So you just decide to keep her locked up in this lie forever, essentially. It's like, oh God. And you used to be her husband and she left you and she's shacking up with all these other people and you're the butler just sort of watching this all happen. Like a weird cuck too. Like there's just so much here that's just like, ugh. There's something wrong here. Something rotten in the state of Denmark. So eventually, Norman realizes that he's come home and he's like, where were you? It was a woman. I know it's a woman. Who is she? She's being very, very dramatic. Let's see, where does that scene go? I think she's just, oh, right. She finds, he doesn't wake up. He either pretends to be asleep or ignores her while she's ranting and raving about this other woman. And, she goes into like his bedside table and she finds Untitled Love Story by Joseph C. Gillis and Betty Schaefer. And so now she, she's on to the fact that he is in love with another woman. Next we see he's with Betty again and they're writing and something's wrong. Joe doesn't really know what it is. And Betty reveals this kind of a funny little detail here. Where she says, like, Betty, there's no use running on about it. Let's face it, whatever it is. And she says, I got a telegram from Artie. And he's like, what's wrong? It's like, he wants me to come to Arizona. He says it only costs $2 to get married there. It would kind of save us a honeymoon. And he's like, well, why don't you? He's like, we can finish the script by Thursday. And he's like, come on, stop crying. You're getting married. That's what you wanted. And he says, she says, I don't want it now. He says, why not? He's like, don't you love Artie? Of course I love him. I always will. I'm just not in love with him anymore. And then he's like, well, what happened? She says, you did. And then they immediately kiss. It's like, oh, okay.
All right.
Yeah. But there's another little detail. I can't remember where it is now. It might have been in the previous scene where they're talking about how he's in Arizona. Oh, yeah. There's a scene. I forgot to mention it. There's a line about how, like, while he was in Arizona, it was raining and they didn't expect it to, so they rewrote the whole script to take place during the rain, or like in the rain, and so then they filmed part of it, and then now it's not going to rain at all anymore, so they don't know what to do. It's just such a funny thing. It's a funny little detail that they're like, oh well, it's raining, so we better rewrite the whole script, and then they rewrite the script, and then the rain stops. I don't know. I just like that detail. It's funny. So
funny for anybody who's ever worked on a film set like that before. It's exactly. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I could have told you it was probably a mistake to rewrite for rain in Arizona. You think you just gotta wait the rain out a little bit. But anyway, um, so they kiss because it's revealed that Betty is in love with him and feels bad, but she's just not in love with Archie anymore. So, um, we cut to Norma and she's in her bed and she is prank
She's
calling.
caught yet.
She's calling Betty, and she gets a hold of her. And her Betty's roommate's like Betty, it's that weird old sounding woman, the weird sounding old woman again. And she's like, well, what is this
Who is
anyway?
this? What's this about?
This
What's going on here? What's the big idea?
Says, you must forgive me for calling you so late, but I really feel it's my duty. It's about Mr. Gillis. You do know Mr. Gillis. Exactly how much do you know about him? Do you know where he lives? Do you know how he lives? Do you know what he lives on? She's like, who are you? What do you want? He's like, what business is it of yours anyway? She's like, I'm trying to do you a favor. I'm trying to spare you a great deal of misery. And there's a great shot where as she's lying in bed, like the door opens in the background of the shot, and Joe sort of walks in as she's having this call.
God,
That's
what a
such
great
cool
shot.
So fucking good. And then she tells Betty that, like, I don't know what he's told you, but he doesn't live with relatives nor with friends in the usual sense of the word, And then he grabs the phone from her and he's like, that's right. Like, Betty, ask me again. This is Joe. She's like, where are you? What is this all about? And he says, like, well, what? You better come see for yourself. Gives her the address, and then he hangs up the phone. And she's like, don't hate me. She's so melodramatic. It's insane. It's like, I need you as I've never needed you before. Look at me. Look at my hands. Look at my face. Look under my eyes. And she kind of, and then
Oh god.
and then as he's about to, is it this scene? Or yeah, this is the revolver, right? Or does she...
Oh yeah, she says I got a revolver, and then
I did. I stood in front of that mirror, but I couldn't make myself do it. Don't just stand there hating me. Shout at me. Strike me, but don't hate me. Say you don't hate me, Joe. And then he just walks out.
Yeah.
It's great.
Well, then she lifts up the pillow, and it is decidedly not a revolver.
No, it's just a gun, but she doesn't know the difference.
It's such a great little joke that it's like, yeah, no, that's just that looks like an army pistol. That is not a revolver.
Super chat from Blankface. Thank you very much. As I'm more a fan of the Sunrise Alleyway myself. Well, to each their own. Everyone's got their own unique tastes and preferences. I'm more of a Sunset Boulevard guy, but hey, you do you, right? Live your best life. Amir with the super chat with no message. Thank you very much. A man, a few words, that Amir. We appreciate him. So yeah, she reveals that she has a gun, that she's threatening to kill herself again.
Keva women, am I right, fellas? Yeah, well, yeah. Least BPD actress, yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
Most normal.
So Betty comes over.
Norma is using the dentist system.
She is kind of using the dentist
system.
She is,
yeah, she is. Dennis,
well, except for
clearly inspired.
She's not doing the separate entirely thing, unless you consider the ending of the movie. This is like an inverse dentist system, but yeah, there's definitely some similarities. So Betty comes over, and she's like, "What is all this?" And Joe's like, look, this is Norma Desmond's house. Look at those pictures. Surely you recognize her. She's
there's enough of her. Liz like, go ahead, look, there's enough of her face around here.
Mm-hmm. Ever been in one of those old Hollywood palazzos? That's from when they were making $18,000 a week and no taxes. So careful of these tiles, they're slippery. Valentino used to dance here, and he's like showing her around, and he's being kind of, I don't know how to describe like the mood he has here, but he's basically like, yep, well, the secret's out, so this is how I live. This is the weird relationship I'm in. You can leave now. You can forget about me. And he's like,
I'm in too deep. There's no hope for me.
Yeah. He's like, would you like something to drink? There's always champagne on ice, plenty of caviar. It's like, did you ever see so much junk She had the ceiling brought from Portugal. And look at this, her own movie theater. She says, I didn't come here to see a house. What about Norma Desmond? Like, that's what I'm trying to tell you. This is an enormous place. 8 master bedrooms, a sunken tub in every bathroom. There's a bowling alley in the cellar. It's lonely here, so she got herself a companion. A very simple setup, an older woman who is well-to-do, a younger man who is not doing too well. Can you figure it out yourself?
I'm like, no. And he's like, fine, I'll give you some more clues. She's like, no. Just tell me straight.
No, it's kind of the opposite. She says, I haven't heard any of this. I never got those telephone calls that I've never been in this house.
Oh, that's right.
Now, get your things together and let's get out of here. She's like, I don't care about any of this. We're just going to pretend it's not real, and you're going to come with me. And we're going to live happily ever after.
Go. Come on, we're just going to go.
Says, all my things, all my 18 suits, all my custom-made shoes, and the 6 dozen shirts, and the cufflinks, and the platinum keychains, and the cigarette cases. She's like, Joe, come on. Like, stop. It's like, come on, we're back to a one-room apart. He's kind of turning into a drama queen himself a little bit in this scene, which is a nice touch. He's like, come on, where? Back to a one-room apartment I can't pay for? Back to a story that may sell and very possibly will not? She's like, if you love me, Joe. And he's like, look, sweetie, be practical. I've got a good deal here. A long-term contract with no options. I like it that way. Maybe it's not very admirable. Well, you and Artie can be admirable. It's like, oh, that's good. He's lost so much of his, like, pride and his desire to, like, do something respectable and admirable. You know, it's just gone. It's just all been, like, sapped out of him.
Hysteria is contagious.
And she says, I can't look at you anymore, Joe. And he's like, well, how about looking for the exit? This way. So good luck to you, Betty. You can finish that script on the way to Arizona. When you and Artie get back, if the two of you ever feel like taking a swim, here's the pool. He's turned into a very sassy, kind of childish person in this scene. It's great. So he shows Betty the door. And it's like, you won't want anything to do with me now, of course, because you've seen how I live. You've seen, what I'm doing here. So she leaves. And he goes to close the door, and we see her up in the balcony. You mentioned this earlier with, like,
great shot. Like the cage. He's, like, walking back into his cage while she watches.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's such a great reveal of her up there, too. The camera does a really good job of, like, revealing people, with the way the camera moves and everything. So then he closes the door. He walks right past her and walks straight into his room, and she goes after her. She goes after him, Norma does, but right before she goes in, she looks at herself in the mirror. And I love this shot because it doesn't actually make any physical sense, but it looks great on camera.
It's so cool. It's so cool. Yeah.
Because, like, the way the camera is angled to the mirror, we see her and we see her reflection in the mirror as she's, like, messing with her hair and everything, making sure.
Well, and I love what it implies, right? Is that, like, she's following him and he goes into the room, but she has to stop and look at herself before she can follow up with him, right? Like,
yes.
She has to stop and make sure that, like, and she tears all of the little things that have been on her face, her beauty prep items off, right? But she still has to stop and admire herself in the mirror before she can go and try to get, what she wants, because that's the only value that she sees that she has, or that she thinks that she has.
That's what's going to convince him to stay, right? Her face.
Exactly.
So she comes in and he's packing a suitcase. Well, first of all, she says, may I come in, Joe? I've stopped crying. It's so good. Anyway, it's like, I'm all right again, Joe. Joe, tell me you're not cross. Tell me everything is just as it was, Joe. Joe, what are you doing? He's like, I'm packing. You're leaving me. He's like, yes, I am, Norma. Like, no, you're not. And she's screaming for Max. And he says, thanks for letting me wear the handsome wardrobe, and thanks for the use of all the trinkets. The rest of the jewelry is in the top drawer. She's like, it's yours, Joe. I gave it to you, and I take it in a second, only it's a little too dressy for sitting behind a copy desk in Dayton, Ohio, which is a great way of revealing, without, like, that's a really great way of revealing what he plans to do now, right?
Yeah.
He's given up on Hollywood completely. He's going back to Dayton, Ohio, right? And to his credit, he's not going to take all the things that she gifted him, right? Because he's kind of like, no, that represents everything.
He never wanted it.
Exactly.
And he, like, it's really, I like this part of his character a lot.
Yes. And so he's like, she says, what is it you want? Money? He's like, Norma, you'd be throwing it away. I don't qualify for the job. Not anymore. She says, you can't go, Max. He's like, I can't face life without you. And you know I'm not afraid to die. And then she pulls out the gun as well. And there's a great little moment of a sort of like emotional callousness on Joe's part where she's holding the gun and she's saying, I'm not afraid to die. And he says, well, that's between you and yourself. It's like, oof. Yep, he doesn't care. He's not going to be emotionally blackmailed by this anymore. Yep.
And like he decides at this point too to just like completely shatter, as somebody mentioned, shatter her gilded cage. Because when Max shows up, this is around when Max shows up,
this
right?
is
He
exactly
starts
when he
demanding,
shows up. Your audio sounds slightly different. Did you do something?
It'll be back to normal.
Okay, I was just curious. Anyway, so, he she tries to give him money. She tries to get him to stay. And when that doesn't work, she threatens, she emotionally blackmails him saying that I'll kill myself. And he's like, well, you do you. I'm not going to get that's between you and yourself. And she says, you think I made that up about the gun, don't you? All right. It's like, see, you didn't believe me. Now I suppose you don't think I have the courage. And he's like, oh, sure. It would make a good scene. She says, you don't care, do you? It's like, well, hundreds of thousands of people will care. She says, wake up, Norma. You'd be killing yourself to an empty house. The audience left 20 years ago. Now face it. And this is obviously very upsetting to Norma. It's like, that's a lie. They still want me. And this is when he's like, you know what? I'm not keeping up this lie for you anymore. Fuck it. No, like, we're not doing this anymore. He's like DeMille was trying to spare your feelings. The studio only wanted to rent your car. He didn't have the heart to tell you. None of us had the heart. And she's like, you're lying. You're a liar. I don't believe you. And it's like, tell her, Max, come on, because Max has entered the room, right? And he's just kind of standing there ominously. It's great. It's like, is Max gonna kill him? There's a couple ways this could go if you've remembered that he's going to die here. You're like, I could believe Max, because like Max might try desperately to
I could
keep
believe
up
that Max
the
would
line.
do it. Yeah,
exactly.
Keep the ruse going.
He says, come on, Max, do her that favor. Tell her there isn't going to be any picture. There aren't any fan letters except the ones you write. And Max does a really political sort of diplomatic thing here and just says, Madame is the greatest star of them all. I'll take Gillis's bags to the car. Right? So it's just like, nope, I'm not going to tell her that. I'm not going to break that illusion. But you can be allowed to leave. You're out of here. She'll find another one eventually, and we'll do the same thing over again, essentially. Maybe she'll get another monkey. And then there's a great line, one of many in this movie, where she's like, you heard him, I'm a star. And he's like, Norma, you're a woman of 50, now grow up. There's nothing tragic about being 50, not unless you try to be 25.
Yeah.
Great line. Very true. Well said. And then as he leaves, kind of quietly and ominously into herself in a rather creepy close-up where she's very dimly lit by moonlight, she goes I'm the greatest star of them all. It's like, oh, Jesus Christ. He says, goodbye, Norma. No one ever leaves a star. That's what makes one a star. It's like, ugh, this is not going to go well. Stars are ageless. That hasn't come yet. So he's going to leave, and he's walking away. He's walking away across the yard, the courtyard, and then he gets shot in the back twice by Norma, and then once in the front, and he falls backwards into the pool. And then we see him floating in the pool, and we cut ahead to the police showing up, taking photos of him. And we see him floating in the pool because he has been killed. And then the narrator returns. He says, well, this is where you came in, back at that pool again, the one I always wanted. It's dawn now, and they must have photographed me 1,000 times. Then they got a couple of pruning hooks from the garden and fished me out ever so gently. Funny how gentle people get with you once you're dead. Another fucking great line. Ugh. There's so many good ones. Because he's still got that sort of bitterness about how, everything went down, right? It's great. They beached me like a harpooned baby whale and started to check the damage, just for the record.
That line cracks me up.
Yeah.
Man, it's so funny. It's it's so over the top and just a funny image, right? Like a harpoon baby whale You know, he's taken on some of that melodrama that feels like some shit that like if you were writing a parody
Yeah.
of Did the Chimp Try to Leave
Yeah,
Earlier?
that's what I was laughing at, the idea that the chimp tried to leave too. Like, we do the same scene where, like, the chimp is packing up its things and just making chimp noises. Like, no, you think I won't do it? You think I won't kill myself? Nobody leaves the star, and she shoots the monkey. That'd be pretty
It'd
funny.
be like that movie David Lynch made, that What Did Jack Do with the monkey?
Tutatabaan! Tutatabaan! Yeah, that's a trippy little short film. Harpoon baby whale and all that. By this time, the whole joint was jumping. Cops, reporters, neighbors, passers-by. As much whoop-de-doo as we get in Los Angeles when they open a supermarket. First of all, we got to bring back talking like this because I love it. I love phrases like whoop-de-doo, like and hullabaloo.
It starts with us, all right? It starts with us.
Yes, right. Be the change you want to see in the world, yeah.
Yeah, be the change you want to see in the world. We have to all start talking like this.
We need to bring back the transatlantic speech pattern and all that sort of stuff because it's fun, man. It's great. Even the newsreel guys came roaring in. There was an item everyone could have some fun with. The heartless so-and-sos. What would they do to Norma? Even if she got away with it in court, crime of passion, temporary insanity, those headlines would kill her. Forgotten star, a slayer, aging actress, yesterday's glamour queen. So, then we get a reporter who comes in, who's like trying to get the coroner's office, now get off. This is more important. Like, Time City desk, Helda Hopper speaking. I'm talking from the bedroom of Norma Desmond. Don't bother with a rewrite, man. Take it direct. Ready? As day breaks over the murder house, Norma Desmond, famous star of yesteryear, is in a state of complete mental shock. A curtain of silence seems to have fallen around her. Like, I love the...
Played by a real-life gossip reporter.
Yes.
As some have already called out as well.
Great stuff. So then we sort of, the camera sort of, cranes over to Norma at her, her little mirror or whatever you call that. And she's like putting on makeup and stuff. And the detectives are trying to talk to her and she's just not really saying anything, right? They're like, you don't deny having killed him, do you? Just answer me that. Was it a sudden quarrel? Did you have any trouble? Was it about money? Did he try to steal from you? What was going on? She doesn't really answer, right? And then Max comes in and he says like the cameras have arrived. And this finally wakes Norma out of her like shocked stupor, right? And everyone's kind of sitting in there and watching, not really know what's going on. But they, and she's like, tell Mr. DeMille I'll be on set at once. And it's like, oh, shit. She's like fully in the delusion now.
Like she's a sleepwalker. She's
yes, exactly.
Fully sleepwalking. Fully sleepwalking through what
and the detectives are like, well, it's one way to get her downstairs. Let's have the car right outside. It's like, everything will be ready, madame. And she says, thank you, Max. You'll pardon me, gentlemen, but I must get ready for my scene. And so everything's getting ready downstairs. I like that Max goes down and basically becomes the director, where he's like asking if the camera guys are ready. He's calling action. He's calling lights, and all that sort of stuff. He says, are you ready, Norma? And she says, what is the scene? Where am I? It's like, this is the staircase of the palace. And she says, oh, yes. Down below, they're waiting for the princess. I'm ready. And he says, all right. And the way the look on his face when he's saying like camera and action, there's like a very profound sadness to it, that he communicates very, very well without really saying anything. It's great. And so, man, the way she descends down the stairs and like everyone's kind of like frozen, like almost frozen around her.
It's so good, dude.
It's so fucking good. It's one of the coolest things ever put to film, man. Given the context of everything building up to this, before we get to the very, very ending, because the most iconic bit, I do like, though it's set up from the very beginning, there is something kind of bold about killing the main character, right? Like, that was kind of a crazy thing to do at the time, like maybe not as crazy as what Psycho does 10 years later, but like that's pretty remarkable, right? And then it's like, once he's dead, now what do we do? Now we stick with Norma, and Norma's gone. Norma's in a whole fantasy sleepwalking dream world, right? Which no wonder David Lynch likes it so much. So the way she walks down the steps, everyone's just kind of standing there with their cameras and their little notepads, and they're just frozen. They kind of turn slowly to watch her, but they barely move, and she just kind of slowly, gracefully comes down the stairs, right? And I think the narrator comes back in. He says, so they were turning after all, those cameras, which is fucking great. I love it, right?
Yep.
Life, which can be strangely merciful, had taken pity on Norma Desmond. The dream she had clung to so desperately had enfolded her. And that's the last we get of the narrator. She comes down to the bottom step, and then she says, I'm sorry, I can't go on with the scene. I'm too happy. Mr. DeMille, would you mind if I said a few words? Thank you. It's just so great, like, because he's not there. She doesn't wait for a response. This is all just in her head. She's just like playing pretend, right? She says, I just want to tell you all how happy I am to be back in the studio making a picture again. You don't know how much I've missed all of you. And I promise you I'll never desert you again. And it's all hanging in the one shot, like the famous, like kind of medium shot, right? And she says, because after Salome, we'll make another picture and another picture. You see, this is my life. It always will be. There's nothing else. Just us and the cameras and those wonderful people out there in the dark. And then she spikes the
Great
lens.
little meta moment.
Yeah.
Great little meta
All those
moment.
wonderful people out there in the dark. And then she says, all right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up. And then she walks towards the camera with her, like, head tilted back.
Head tilted back, eyes locked on the lens. So her she looks deranged, and she's like moving her hand like the Wicked Witch of the West.
Yes, essentially. Yeah, and then she kind of like fades into like a dissolvey, blurry sort of cloud of mist, essentially, and that's how the movie ends. This has got to be one of the best movie endings of all time, right?
Yeah, one of the best movie beginnings, one of the best movie endings of all time.
Yes, I mean, legitimately,
maybe one of the best definitely one of the best movies ever made. Right? Like, it's incredible.
The first time because I didn't know much about this movie before I discovered it, and I only really discovered it because it was on the AFI Top 100 American Movies of All Time list, and I decided to like start watching some of those that I hadn't seen. And this and Casablanca were like the two that I had not seen before. Looking at that list, that I was like, okay, I get it. Like, I get the hype on this one. This is one of the greatest movies. It's so fucking good. And this is one of those movies that like is praised endlessly and is going to be remembered for a long time as one of the greatest films, especially American films. But I would open that up to the world as well. One of the better ones ever made, I think, for good reason, and I think it'll stand the test of time too, because there's something very timeless about it. But man, because like there's something so timeless about it, because there's something so timeless about this like psychological portrait of delusion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be Hollywood. It can be so many other settings, but like that's a timeless human fault. It's like a vice and like a trap to fall into, especially for people as successful as her.
I just sent you the one of the images of the image of the final scene. If you wouldn't mind like throwing that up,
I'll put it on screen. So because there's something so unnerving about the way her head is tilted back like that, and with her hand kind of reaching out. Hold on, I'll put it on screen in a second. You can keep talking though.
Yeah, it's. I mean, there's also there's another one where it's like kind of at the moment where it starts fading, which might be maybe preferable. I'm not 100% sure like which one you think. I with her hand up is when it starts to fade into the mist. But yeah, it's just incredible, man. Like, this is like, this is one of the ones like you look on the AFI list, and this you're like, yep, that makes sense. Yes. Absolutely belongs up there.
For Wasserman, we are putting, if it's not already there, the final shot. As she sort of moves towards the camera, it sort of dissolves into like a blur, but it should be popping on the screen any second. There it is. Yep. Topaz Dude says, this is the last time Wilder and Brackett ever wrote a script together. What a way to go out. Probably the best writing duo in movies ever. Yeah, certainly up there.
Yeah, gotta be.
Yeah. God, that like the way her head's tilted back like that is so fucking creepy. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. like she's trying to perform exotic princess. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
But because of her age and all the context of the story leading up to it, it's just like, oh God, what happened
Very
to you?
off-putting, yeah.
Yes.
It's incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, and that and her descending down the stairs, which I can't show because it's a longer clip that a still image wouldn't really do justice to. But so much of this ending scene is, like, incredibly, incredibly effective. Like, the look of sorrow and sadness on the director's, Max's face and all that sort of stuff. And the idea that, like, you know, all this sort of, you know, trouble over a movie that was never going to get made. And Joe's like, for cameras that would never turn. And then it's like, I guess they turned after all. The sort of like, you know, not quite cynical, but like sarcastic sort of bleakness to the end of this movie that's really, really, really effective and very sort of surprising for 1950. You know what I mean? I wouldn't describe it as so cynical that, like, I mean, compared to modern standards, it's not nearly as cynical, but like, it's just,
Yeah.
It rides a really interesting line. You know, like that they kill the main character, that he just ends up dead in a pool. Because essentially he thinks there's no way to save himself. Essentially, he thinks himself undeserving of Betty, so he just kind of gives her all the reasons she should just never want to see him again. You know, he might think he's doing the right thing by saving her from him, but it's just a sort of like self-sabotaging sort of, you know, self-loathing for like getting himself this deep, right? Eventually he's going to leave, but he doesn't feel like he's deserving of Betty, right? And then he doesn't really take how, you know, how violent and resentful the sort of pit of Norma's soul really is. And then she ends up killing him for it. Because he got himself in too deep because he could have done this at any time earlier. And he waits too long. He takes too long. He plays along for too long, and then he tries to wake the sleepwalker, and she kills him. Just like, damn.
Yep.
Pretty brutal, but really, really, really effective. Just an incredibly well scripted and well told story. Yeah. Really nice cinematography. Some absolutely excellent performances, but especially Gloria Swanson. Absolutely masterful in this. A really interesting story about delusion and obsession and, like, you know, like him getting like tangled up in the spider web of this woman. This, you know, it's so good. So good.
Yeah. It's fantastic. It's really good. Like it's incredible to think too that there's a mention in the chat about the other Oscar nominees being About Eve and Born Yesterday. Neither of those two is on the AFI Top 100 American Films list. Those two won.
I've heard good things about Eve. I haven't even heard of the other one though.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard of the About Eve. I've heard. I've never seen it, but I've heard good stuff about it. It won. That's the one where.
A seemingly timid but secretly ruthless ingenue insinuates herself into the lives of an aging Broadway star and her circle of theater friends, starring Bette Davis.
Yep, and Marilyn Monroe.
Is she in that one?
That's what it says.
Okay. It's not showing up on IMDb. Oh, but yeah, there she is.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, there it is. Marilyn Monroe, right there.
Yeah,
she might have been like a bit.
No,
role.
she's there. She's there. I see her now. Yeah. Marilyn Monroe.
Okay, so that's very interesting. That All About Eve, back in 1998, was ranked number 16 on AFI's Best 100 American Films, but in their 100 Years, 100 Movies 10th Anniversary edition, it's not on the list, and Sunset Boulevard takes 16th place.
Oh, weird. It's not on the list at all. It goes from 16 to off the list. What?
Yeah. It goes from 16 to off the list by the 100 Years, 100 Movies 10th Anniversary edition. That is kind of wild.
Was Sunset Boulevard not on the first list?
I don't know. It might have been.
Okay.
I don't have access to the actual list. I have the Wikipedia page saying that it was ranked number 16 and then dropped.
Interesting.
Okay. So 1990. Okay, yeah. Let's see. Was Sunset Boulevard was number 12 on the 1998 list, and then on the 100 Years, 100 Movies 2007 list, it dropped to number 16.
That's too low. That's too low.
All About Eve dropped to 28, so it is still on the list.
Okay, yeah, like that. That's crazy that that actually fell off.
Yeah,
so I'm
okay,
looking
yeah,
at
yeah,
the
I
100
missed it.
years, 100 movies list, right? Like some of the ones that are higher than Sunset Boulevard, I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't know that The Graduate is better. I like The Graduate, fine, but
The Graduate's one below.
no.
Sunset Boulevard. The one I have is Sunset Boulevard is 16. The Graduate is 17.
I'm looking at it says 100 years, 100 movies. I'm looking at it's on AFI's list and it has it at 12, and The Graduate's 7. So I don't know.
Really?
That's what I'm looking at. Yeah, on AFI.com/AFI is 100 years, 100 movies.
Okay. I'm on the 10th anniversary edition.
Oh, okay. Well, I can't keep up. There's too many lists. Either way.
So they've made too many changes. There's no way that it's changed that much. But I mean, All About Eve dropping like all the way from 16th to 28th place. Like what replaced it? Raging Bull. Okay. Raging Bull's pretty good. It's a pretty good movie.
I'm kind of lukewarm on Raging Bull. That's my hot take. And we're not going to explore it any further right now.
Hey, you want to hear another hot take, chat? The Searchers is number 12. Sunset Boulevard is number 16. Shall we discuss, or should we save that for another time?
We'll save that for another time. We'll get to some of the... we talked originally at some point about watching all of these.
I would like to still do that at some point. I mean, I've seen a good portion of them now.
It's a big undertaking, but we'll...
It is... Yeah.
We're talking about more and more of them as we go. Consider this progress along that front. Yeah, Sunset Boulevard turns 75 years old today, and it's a great movie. I think it's worth watching. It's worth rewatching. It's worth remembering. I think there's something very timeless about it. Obviously, there are things about it that are of its time in terms of the style of narration and the pacing of the film and how it's shot and all that sort of stuff. But it's aged incredibly well, I would say. It's very excellently written. There's a lot of great setups and payoffs, little details that seem like they're just doing a little bit to flesh out the world, but they come back later. All that sort of great stuff you like to see in a solid script.
From a well-written script, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a fan of good writing, this is the movie for you.
Yeah.
Definitely want to check it out.
And it's a very writerly movie because it's about writing, among other things. And
Yep.
I love a good movie about the sort of underbelly of Hollywood. It's just so much fun. Yeah. Great ending. Like one of the best endings of all time, legitimately. I think it's up there.
I agree 100%. Yeah. Excellent. That's about all that I have to say.
Yeah. Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah.
Way to go. You did it. At the core, character-driven dramas tend to hold up really well. That's true. That is true, especially when they're this well written. Yeah. Hugh, have you seen The Apartment?
No.
Yeah, we got to watch that at some point. I really love that movie too. Jack Lemmon, Shirley, what's her name? Shirley MacLaine. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent movie.
I love Jack Lemmon. Jack Lemmon.
He's the best.
Yeah.
I rewatched
Glenn Ross. He's really good.
I love Glenn Ross. It's such a great movie. Stacked cast, great performances, great dialogue. Excellent movie. And he's especially good in that film as the kind of washed up has-been real estate guy at the end of his rope.
Yep.
Good shit. Anyway, that's Sunset Boulevard. And next week we're going to talk about Weapons. So Hugh will have to watch it by then, and so will you.
I will definitely go see it by then. I'm very excited.
Yep.
A good movie in a theater.
Yeah, it's good. I think you'll like it. I certainly had a blast watching it. I want to watch it again, which is not something I think after many of the movies I watch in the theaters these days. So that's a good sign. I think there's a lot going for it. And like a lot of my favorite horror movies of all time, it's kind of shockingly funny. And so I think you'll appreciate that as well. I love a good horror movie that's genuinely creepy and genuinely funny. I've just, The Shining. Sort of my big example
The Shining.
for that.
It's a rarity. I'm very excited to see that. Watch Ace in the Hole. It's the most underrated film of all time, I would say. It's about how journalists are immoral. Well, that certainly sounds accurate.
Ace in the Hole. Ace.
I think that's another Billy Wilder one he was mentioning from
Yep,
earlier in the chat. And
1951. Kirk Douglas.
Oh, hell yeah.
Jan
Okay.
Sterling.
Prime Kirk Douglas.
Frustrated
I'd be...
I'm going to read the description for you. Frustrated former journalist Chuck Tatum, now working for an Albuquerque newspaper, exploits a story about Trading Post owner Leo Minosa trapped in a cave to rekindle Chuck's career, but the story soon escalates into a media circus. Oh, that's interesting.
That sounds fun.
He like sensationalizes or makes up a story and it kind of gets out of hand. That's cool. That's interesting. I'll definitely check that out. It's very well rated on IMDb too. Yeah, I've never really heard of it. I believe you that it's one of the more underrated movies of all time. I can see that. Yeah, we'll check that out at some point. We like we've said before, we're going to try to watch and talk about more old movies. But we are going to talk about Weapons next week because it's a new movie and it's actually pretty good. So, yeah, you can expect more of these, more Billy Wilder movies eventually. Ace in the Hole sounds cool. I really want to watch Witness for the Prosecution at some point. That's another Billy Wilder movie that's high on my list to check out. Yeah. And then, after Weapons, maybe the next Disney movie. Who knows? Who's to say? But we got plenty of great stuff coming your way eventually. Thanks for joining us today, fine folks. Hope you enjoyed talking about Sunset Boulevard. I know we sure did. I appreciate all the super chats and all the fine comments in the chat. Yeah. You have anything else you wanted to add, Hugh?
No, I think I'm good. I'm ready to see Weapons, man. I'm excited for an actual good new movie.
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy it. I think it'll